Good evening. I'll call the meeting to order. Welcome to the April 21st, 2026 City Council meeting. I hereby call the meeting to order. Members of the public may attend the City Council meeting in person or may watch or listen remotely by viewing the meeting on Channel 8 WCTV and at the city's website at wayzata.org/WCTV. Public comment during the public forum and or public hearing portions of the meetings may be provided in person at the meeting in advance or by logging into the Teams call and raising your hand during the public hearing. When your name is called in the meeting, you'll be seen and heard at our council chambers and the cable channel. You'll be asked to unmute and turn on your camera, and then you may begin your comment. All public comments should include your first name and the neighborhood or group that you're representing. Next on our agenda is the Pledge of Allegiance. I would ask everyone to stand if you're able and follow along. Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. Next will be our roll call for this evening. I will note for the record that all council members are present this evening. We did not have a workshop earlier this evening, but I do need to note that on April 7th, after our city council meeting, we had a closed session of council, and this session was closed pursuant to Minnesota Statute 13D.05, Subdivision 3B, the attorney-client privilege exception to the open meeting law. This meeting was closed to permit the council to meet with its attorneys to review and candidly and openly discuss absolute confidential and privileged matters related to the following litigation: Adeline C. Adams, 225 Manitoba Avenue, LLC, Olivia A. Adams, Wayzata Cottage, LLC, and Robert C. Fisher, trustee of Robert C. Fisher Trust, plaintiffs and petitioners versus the City of Wayzata defendant, and also Jeffrey Lee Homers, 306 Berry Avenue, LLC, Scott Trips, 1020 Lake Street East, LLC, Anna Ostunskaya, and Yevgeny Organovich, plaintiffs, petitioners versus the City of Wayzata defendant. With that, the next item is to approve our agenda. I need a motion to approve the agenda as presented, or do we need any amendments or changes?
I'll make that motion for you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you. Can I have a second?
Second.
Any further discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, motion passes 5-0. Next is our public forum, and we have a couple different flavors of this tonight. We've got quite a few people here, but just as a reminder to those out in the public, you fill out a card and give it to staff if it's on the agenda item, and you will then be called to the dais during that agenda item. If it's something that's not on the agenda, it would be now in the public forum. So fill out that form, provide it to staff. If you're on Teams, please send a note to staff via chat and let them know what agenda item you wish to speak about. Do I have any cards for this part of our public forum?
Mr. Mayor, you do not.
And nobody on Teams?
Mr. Mayor, we do not.
Okay, so our first formal presenter on the public forum is an update from our Hennepin County Commissioner, District 6, Heather Edelson. Welcome. Thank you for being here. City Manager, did you want to introduce this in any way, or we just go right to?
I would just turn it over right to Commissioner Edelson. Thank you for being here tonight.
Yeah, thank you. Welcome.
Thank you. Hello, Council. It's good to see all of you. It's a beautiful day. It's nice to have the doors open. All right, well, we'll get going. I think I have about 10 minutes, and I'm going to try to cruise through this. So hello, everyone here, too. I'm Heather Edelson. I'm the County Commissioner. I've been in this role for about 2 years now. Before this, I was at the legislature for 6 years, representing Edina at the Capitol. All right, so we'll go ahead to our next slide. This is just some fun facts about the county. It was established in 1852. What year was the state of Minnesota established? Anybody know? 1858, actually. Yes, I know. So the county was actually established before the state of Minnesota. They were broken into territories, and so the counties were the first ones to start. So 45 cities in Hennepin County, 1.3 million. But thank you, Mayor, for playing trivia with me.
Playing along.
I know, I love it. Thank you. 1.3 million residents. We have 8 Fortune 500 companies, 100 plus lakes, 607 square miles, and 11 watershed districts. What watershed are we? Yes, there we go. All right. We got it. People in the audience playing. All right, let's go. We can go to the next slide. And so we have this, this is a fun word cloud just to show you all the different areas that the county actually works in. We do record keeping. We have the county hospital that's made the news a lot, and we'll be talking about that later. Public health. We have our dispatch center. Lots of different things we're doing. And you can go ahead and go to the next slide. So here was our budget that we adopted. It's a $3.15 billion budget. You can see the different revenue sources that are there, property taxes being 35%. And I'll be talking about property taxes for a little bit for the next few slides here. What we have seen progressively throughout the years is a more reliance on property taxes because of how our business is. In downtown, there's less businesses that are there. And so we have had that shift, and we are working at the county diligently to make sure that does not continue. So we are having monthly budget briefings to try to figure out how we can reduce cost so that we do not continue to see the projections up. And we'll keep going to the next slide. Here's our expenditures for line of business. Health and Human Services are about 50% of our budget. So you think about child protection, disability waiver services, SNAP benefits. The county is the safety net of a community as a whole, or as the county as a whole. So a lot of things that we wonder who is doing that. You can oftentimes, when you're thinking about Health and Human Services, the county usually has a line with the state of Minnesota on that. And a lot of the county is actually required to do things by either the federal government or the state government. And then you'll see the sheriff, law, safety, justice, but we also have a lot of partnerships with our local police departments. We have a lot of partnerships with our local public health. So a lot of different, and you think about one interesting thing that I didn't know before I became a county commissioner was when every restaurant you go and visit in Hennepin County, Hennepin County is actually reviewing that restaurant to see if it meets qualification for state standards. And so that is just an interesting way that people don't usually think about the county in that capacity. And it's affecting your everyday life. And we'll go ahead and go to the next slide. So this is going to be hard for people to see. And hopefully, council, you have that in front of you. But this is the sources of revenue broken up. And so the dark blue line, what you'll see is the first one is property taxes in 2024. Then I'm just gonna stay on the first one of property taxes. Then the light blue is the 2025 budget. And then the green is where we are at now. So you'll see that reliance that I told you is going up. We really need to stop that from continuing up in that trajectory. And so that's why we are having those monthly briefings. And I want to make sure, this is my, I think, 10th city council. I have 16 cities that I represent. My goal is that we are not continuing that trend. And so you'll see the state over about 4 graphs, and you'll see that the state funding, it can go up and down, and it fluctuates. And then the federal funding, we've seen some decrease in that. And if you go to the next slide, I feel like an auctioneer, I'm trying to go so fast. Expenditures for line of business, you'll see for the third line over with health, we've seen a dramatic increase in that. For many of reasons, the needs in the county are definitely shifting to a lot of need around public health. And then one of the things that has come up, disparity eliminations, and I just want people to understand what that is. It's employment, it's barriers to housing, it's looking at people in, say, for instance, a workforce, if somebody is coming out of jail and making sure that they can get a job. It's making sure that we have pathway programs and things like that, which helps our overall economy and it helps our overall community. And then we'll keep going unless, council members, please, if you have questions throughout, let me know. Otherwise, I'll just kind of keep powering through. If you want to go to the next one. All right, so this is the net property tax impact that we're seeing for Wayzata. So it's the estimated market value. If you have a home that's about $1 million, you've seen going from the market value from $1 million to about 1.152, and that's a 14% change. Now the net capacity change is a little complicated. So that's actually a state law that is homes up to 1%. It's been a long day, and the county deals with a lot of public policy. So, okay, so if you are up to 500,000, Your home is taxed at a net value of 1%. But then if you go above 500,000, the state law says at 1.25. So Wayzata's share is actually larger for a multitude of different reasons, that some of which the county just simply does not control. It is actually state law. So that is what we are at, a 22.1% increase, which is a lot. And I completely understand that, Mayor. I acknowledged that when we were looking at that earlier this year. Actually, in District 6, our districts of the 16 cities I represent, I would say our cities have disproportionately seen probably the largest share of taxes. And so, as you can see, that's one of the reasons why making sure that we are pushing to not have that trend continue. And next slide. Some of the federal cuts that we are seeing. So SNAP for administration. So now just a quick explanation here is SNAP. The county administers it for the state of Minnesota. Other states, actually, the state administers SNAP. And so they'll actually do the qualification process, and then they'll also send the payment out. Now, the federal government sends it to the state of Minnesota, and then the state of Minnesota, we are actually qualifying people for SNAP. Confusing? Yes. So we do that in Minnesota, and we are actually seeing an administrative cost of $8 million reduction for 2026. And then we also have terminated grants that we're looking at about $2.8 million. But I have to be honest, some of those it's changing every month, and so those right there, we're looking at grants for, I believe, housing. All right, and we can go on to the next one. These are just the 2027 grants that we are looking, or anticipated cuts that we're trying to prepare for as a county. There's an error rate that we are anticipating about $20 million of impact for Hennepin County alone. The error rate in the state of Minnesota is about 8%. HR1 said that we need the error rate to be 6%. We've asked for a delay in that. Counties all across the state of Minnesota, and about 33 other states in the United States have also asked for that. Now, Alaska got an exemption from the error rate. Counties need more time. We have archaically old systems, and it's gonna be very challenging to get our error rate down within 6 months from now. So that's a challenge. HUD housing, it is permanent housing supports for supportive housing for people with disabilities. We are expecting about a $12 million cut there. I saw Secretary Ronnie Krantz and asked him if we could see a delay in that. I did not get a good answer on that, so my hope is they'll consider a delay. And then Medicaid cuts with HR1. We do not have the complete financials figured out exactly on what the impacts will be, but it's not just hospitals that are going to see cuts on that. There's a lot of services that we as a county bill for that we will see cuts for Medicaid on. And so the impact to the county directly will be challenging. And on to the next slide. So one of the things that we're doing right now with the state of Minnesota is, you've probably heard it in the news, we're asking for a ballpark sales tax. So the Twin Stadium is paid for. We have a hospital which currently receives no funding from the state government. It does, however, receive about 4 levy points from Hennepin County taxpayers. So what we're hoping for is taking that 4 levy points, which is about $40 million. The levy point in Hennepin County is $10 million. And so we're going to be shifting that hopefully to the ballpark. Hennepin County alone shouldn't necessarily be the ones paying for HCMC when it is actually a state asset, and there's a large portion of people that are coming all throughout the state of Minnesota for uncompensated care or underinsured people or uninsured people or Medicaid alone. And the people at different hospitals will send them to our hospital and just expect that we're going to take care of. Now, we want to take care of people, I want to be very clear, but we do think that everybody should pay a portion of this. And so trying to figure out a mechanism that makes more sense would be helpful. In the federal government, our goal is just to reduce the amount of Medicaid impacts. We'll go to the next slide. So just really quick, you can review that later, but we've had a lot of changes also in the news in terms of what governance looks like and who's running the hospital. We are the hospital board. We took over in August. I was a no vote on that just because I simply wanted a timeline for how long we would actually be the hospital board. I'm a clinician, but I am not a doctor. I'm a therapist is what I did before I was elected to office, and I've been in government now for 8 years. And so I know my limitations, and just don't believe that we are the best politicians. I don't think are the best ones to run a hospital. And so I stick to that, and I will continue to try to make sure that we are getting that hospital run by healthcare executives and doctors and physicians that actually understand how to run a hospital. But I promise you, I'm working really hard, and I've read a lot about hospital policy and trying to do the best we can right now. So, all right, on to the next one. Early voting, I want to make sure all of our cities know about this. City manager, just making sure that you know that the city has just sent an email last week that will be giving up to $9,000 for one-time funding for early voting for every city in Hennepin County. So just make sure to let us know on that. If you need, Stan Rogan is who you'll want to be emailing. And you can go to the next slide. We've opened a crisis youth stabilization center in Hennepin County. There's 13 beds. This was about a $20 million project, and you might say 13 beds, 20 million, the math doesn't math. Well, actually, you'd be surprised. One youth that is in the care of Hennepin County with complex mental health needs, sometimes we would have to have them go out of the state, and that one child could cost us more than $1 million to care for them. And we are seeing a multitude of different youth. I mean, it could be up to 75 kids that we see in a year, and trying to find placement. It is also important that we keep kids as close as we can to their families so that we can reunite them with their families. And so looking at comprehensive health is really important. We'll go to the next slide. And we have a new public safety center in Plymouth, which is really exciting. The sheriff's office was pretty excited about this. I don't know if council members you were able to attend, but the opening was really, really great. And it has a green roof on top and solar and geothermal, so state of the art. And all of the sheriff's deputies are very excited about it. And next slide. One of the things that we do, we collaborated with Wayzata Public Schools for fiber optic collaboration here, so you can see that. And next slide. And here's just some Wayzata area projects. And I also have Lisa Cerny here, who is our assistant county administrator with the county, so she's from Public Works. She certainly can answer any questions, but we are just doing some chip sealing on Wayzata Boulevard, as well as the Wayzata Boulevard and Gleason Road. We have some ADA updates that we're doing, pavements, stormwater structures. And then next slide. And for 101, it doesn't say that on there, but Mayor, thank you for hosting the community gathering that we had, I believe, was it a year ago? Yeah, yep. A year ago. And so we've added some visibility, some of the speed zones and crossing. Well, let's see here, Lisa, maybe you can talk to these. Yeah, I'm gonna call you up here. Not my specialty on exactly what you guys did here.
Thank you, Commissioner, and council members and mayor. I'm Lisa Cerny. I'm the Assistant County Administrator for the Public Works line of business with Hennepin County. And so, yes, 101, thank you for hosting the community meeting, bringing together MnDOT, the Three Rivers Park District, the school district, the city of Plymouth, and creating a space for us to be able to listen to residents and what they're experiencing on 101. Some specific actions the county took was we worked to increase visibility, ensuring that Hollybrook residents have a different and safer access onto 101, working with MnDOT to change some signal timing. Next slide, please. And then increasing some visibility and enforcement around the school zone and speed limit during school. Appreciate the partnership with your enforcement, Plymouth law enforcement, helping us set up some speed traps to help educate people along the way and make sure that they also understand the importance and the role that they play in safe travels, whether that be for pedestrians, bikers, or people in cars.
While you're there, could you go back a couple slides? Just had a question about Wayzata Boulevard here. So I note that there is the County Road 101 intersection, but it doesn't extend to 394. Do you know when that component will be part of scope?
Mayor, I'm assuming you're talking about the one that's labeled estimated construction 2030?
Correct, yep. And so you've got County Road 15, which is Vicksburg, right? Then you've got County Road 101, and then we're looking to create the whole corridor, which I know you're aware of. I just wanted to know if you had any further guidance on timing of when we partner with you to fully complete Wayzata Boulevard.
You're asking the exact same question the city of Plymouth is asking us.
Right.
And so we are in the process right now of reviewing all of our county roads and our county corridors and in the process of developing what our next 5-year CIP. 101 is one of those roads that is on the cusp of, of needing a reconstruction, and reconstruction is the best time for us to make those longer-term improvements of 101 going north from where that is. And so I anticipate in the near future that will be part of the CIP, and we will then be able to do some of those bigger improvements that residents have expressed. Obviously, I'm not trying to get ahead of engagement with those projects, but we do.
Yeah, no, that's part of my question. Then the other is the Wayzata Boulevard, part of the county responsibility that kind of goes through the eastern part of our city. Is that on the roadmap or will be part of the conversation? And, or maybe you know the answer in terms of when our corridor will actually get on the block.
Thank you, Mayor and council members. I believe that that's what's already listed there as the estimate of 2030, that portion of Wayzata Boulevard.
Okay, that's the full corridor for what the county's responsibility is.
Right, that's the county portion of Wayzata Boulevard.
That's what I was
right
trying to
there.
clarify. Thank you.
Yep. Okay, all right.
Thank you for that.
Yep, and then we'll keep going up, and I think we're essentially almost done here. Yep, and that's it.
Okay, questions of County Commissioner from Council? Mr. Cook?
Yeah, thank you very much for coming. Have you guys, how much conversation have you had about, so you talked about the property taxes. Got concerns about the decreased valuation of properties in the central business district of Minneapolis and how that's going to impact the county statewide. How deep are your conversations and analysis on kind of that impact and how that's going to push out to the communities throughout Hennepin County?
Well, thank you, council member. That's a great question. We are working actively with the Downtown Council, the Downtown Business Council, to try to do what we can to bring businesses back. But I think what we're seeing is there's just a shift in terms of how people want to work. We can't force, businesses, private businesses, to decide that they want their offices to be in downtown Minneapolis again. They're picking other places, and oftentimes the spaces are significantly smaller in the suburbs. So a lot of people are working from home, and we can have as many philosophical conversations on that of whether or not we agree or disagree with it. But businesses, it's hard. I don't know if that's answering your question.
well-
They're not doing it in the way that we wish that we were, because we have an entire structure of revenue from taxes that
Yeah.
we have set up to rely on that.
Yeah, and it's not so much a philosophical question because I know you can't control that, but
Yeah.
there is a reality of properties in downtown Minneapolis are trading at pennies on the dollar, and they will be revalued, and that tax burden will have to the county's not going to spend less money, so that burden is going to have to shift to other revenue sources outside of the downtown area, and that's a significant amount of the budget.
And that's what we're looking at.
Yeah.
It's what we're looking at
Yeah.
when it comes to the hospital. We're looking at a different revenue source, with sales tax for that. But for the other parts of it, it's complicated, right? You can only have so many sales taxes.
Yeah, right.
But it's challenging. We've worked with, again, the Downtown Business Council, but there's also developers with the historic tax credit that are looking to develop some of those old empty buildings into condos. There are some challenges there too, and I know that the mayor of Minneapolis, he's talked about it quite a bit too, but again, we just have to have movement. I think developing in some areas is really working well, and in some areas that's not right now. It's a challenging time, but yeah, you're highlighting something that's really important.
Yeah. And then this is not a question, but a comment. I want to thank you for standing up in support of the county sheriff's department. Thank you for pushing back against some of your colleagues' what I would say rogue thoughts on eliminating that department and the looking at the need for that department. So I just encourage you to stay strong on that one, and thank you for standing up for the sheriff's department, because communities like ours benefit significantly from the support we receive from them.
Thank you, council member. I will.
Yeah.
Mr. Sorensen?
Yeah, just a quick question, and I think you touched on it briefly, but HCMC, serves people way beyond Hennepin County, like you mentioned. Is there any meaningful conversation going on between the county and state level about realistically how we can deal with that?
Thank you, council member, for the question. I think it's a good one. We have had, the conversation really is about, we need sustainable funding, and it's a crisis moment because if we don't get state funding this year, genuinely, the hospital will close and we'll have to start a wind down process. So it's been so focused on that. I have concerns about governance and some of the decisions and how it works. But looking at an infrastructure where the state funds HCMC, I'll just tell you from my policy brain from a state level, will be interesting because rural hospitals right now are also struggling, right? Slightly different than we are, but because of the volume that we have and the payer mix that we have. But it will be interesting if the state gets in the business of maybe direct appropriations to hospitals, could be interesting, right? But at the same time, it's something where we need to have hospitals. It's one, people consider when they're thinking about a community, they want roads, they want bridges, they want sheriffs, they want police, they want schools, and they also want healthcare. And so it is in the business of the state to make sure that hospitals do not fail. So I think it's a great question. I don't think on a granular level that we're having enough conversations about what that could possibly look like. But there's a lot of solutions that are being discussed. And coming from the Capitol, I can tell you the last 2 weeks are where really everything gets done. So it'll be interesting to see what other ideas are being floated. One of the things that Representative Nadeau is proposing right now is all of the states in the state of Minnesota pay into the general fund a portion of their revenue, and then that revenue could then subsidize the safety net hospitals. And I think that's actually a really great idea. So just one idea.
Yeah, okay, thank you.
I just have a related question. I'm curious, the ballpark tax extension is sort of probably not going to pro forma enough of a revenue source to right-size or stabilize the system. Do you see an appetite to go beyond that at the Capitol, or is it still just a, wait and see in this session?
Mayor, I think it's a great question. I am not sure. I mean, it's really the prediction of what happens at the Capitol. It is not going to be enough. I mean, the revenue will be $300 million a year that would come to the county, but that is not enough. And I think the hospital will still have to make cuts, and we'll still have to downsize and make efficiencies, which we've been trying to do. I'm not sure what will happen in the last.
But is it fair to say that if the ballpark tax alone is the Band-Aid, that's not going to provide a sustainable source for the needs based on the funding cuts from the feds and everywhere else? I mean, is that a fair assessment? I'm not as steeped in the details.
I would say the ballpark sales tax, if we get it at 1%, actually would be enough. It would be enough for us to level out the hospital,
Okay.
to remain open, that's why we've asked for the 1 cent, which is a lot. And Senator Rest has said it's a little bit too high for her, and so she came in at a 0.25%. So, I think there's negotiations in the logistics. People will argue that a sales tax is regressive, but the reality is not having healthcare is also regressive and not great for a community. So it is a challenge. We're in a financially challenging discussion, but it won't be enough. I will say that we can make cuts to the hospital to make it operate if we get this 1% sales tax.
Thank you. Any other questions of the commissioner? Thank you for being here, and thank you for your service to our little community out here. And we certainly will be leaning on you for some support here in the next year or two for roads and some of the infrastructure stuff that we rightfully need some investment out here. So thank you for that.
Yeah, it's an honor to serve Wayzata, and so always please do call me and let me know what I can do to help. I will always try to my best to make sure that our community their needs are met. Thank you.
Yep, thank you very much. City Manager Yeager, do we have anyone coming on Teams?
Mr. Mayor, we do not.
Okay, so now we're on to new agenda items. Does council have any new agenda items that we'd like to discuss and bring up at a future council meeting? Hearing none, we'll go move on to our consent agenda. So on our consent agenda this evening is approval of city council workshop and regular meeting minutes of March 24th, 2026, approval of our check register, approval of municipal licenses, receipt of the police activity report, receipt of the building activity report, approval of professional services agreement with Brunken Consulting LLC for temporary communication support, approval of professional services agreement with VSI Professional Sound Services, and letters of agreement with the artists for Sunday Music in the Park series, and approval of the seasonal lease agreement with Tonka Boat Rentals LLC for boat rentals at the Depot Community Docks. I would accept a motion to approve the consent agenda as presented, or do we need items pulled or amended?
I'll move to approve the consent agenda as outlined, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you. May I have a second?
Second.
Any further discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, that passes 5-0. Next is going on to our regular agenda items, and first up is the Walser Lamborghini dealership at 1022 Wayzata Boulevard East. I just want to frame this in terms of a process, both for council and the public, about how we're going to go through this. It's state statute that we have to have a public hearing related to the vacation and draining and utility easements. And we're going to have a separate public hearing for that topic fenced in. We will also give other members of the public a chance to weigh in on the other elements of the approval or consideration of approval, which is the PUD and the first reading of the ordinance 860. So with that, I just wanted people to understand, if you want to talk about it, we're going to take it in two parts, right? One is the required public hearing on the vacation, and the second would be on the project overall. So just on background, on February 24, 2026, the preliminary and final plat, PUD, general plan variances and design deviations was approved by this body, the council, and allowed public comment at the project at this time. So with that, I'm going to structure this as a presentation from staff. Then we'll have questions from the council. Then we'll allow the applicant to present, and we'll have questions. We will then have the public vacation hearing, open and closed, and then we'll allow further comment after that public hearing is closed on the project. Does that make sense to everybody? Okay, with that, I'm going to turn it over to staff for their presentation.
Thank you, Mayor and Council. I'm going to turn it over to Community Development Director Sharp.
Thank you, Manager Yeager. Try to pull that a little closer. Thank you, Manager Yeager and Mayor, for introducing the item. As stated, this is a PUD development agreement, rezoning and vacation of drainage utility easements at 1022 and 1042 Wayzata Boulevard East. The owner is Walser Real Estate, and they are also the applicant for the proposed project. As the Baron noted, we have 3 actions before the council this evening. There are 2 potential options that are either or for the first action, which is the PUD development agreement. I will go into greater detail on these later, but essentially it is a approve with the recommended conditions from the applicant, or remove or approve the project consistent with Resolution 12-2026. And I will go into further detail on what the differences between those 2 are. There'll be the rezoning, which would be the rezoning of the site from C3 to PUD, a standard practice as we're moving through this project after the PUD general plan has been approved. And then, as the mayor noted, the vacation of drainage utility easements. Typically, the staff and planning commission provide our recommendations on certain actions. For certain portions of this agenda item, the planning commission does not review. So in the case of the PUD development agreement, staff recommends approval, consideration of approval of the 2 options presented. In terms of the rezoning, staff and planning commission recommend approval, as the planning commission held the public hearing on that. I will go through a greater detail on that, but we do recommend approval of ordinance 860 to rezone the property. And then planning commission does not review the vacation either. That is why the city council is holding the public hearing. So staff recommends approval of the vacation if the first 2 items of the PUD are approved. Because there were some changes in conditions, I wanted to do a brief introduction. So the site is at the southeast corner of Wayzata Boulevard East and Central Avenue South. It is currently 2 different parcels and the subject site of Mulberry's Dry Cleaning. As I noted, there are 2 separate parcels totaling 0.88 acres. There are access points off of Huntington, which is a closed street for public parking on the west side, Wayzata Boulevard to the north, and access points off of Central Avenue South. We went through these during the presentation that the mayor had noted for their approvals. So won't go through additional items, but want to have this available for context. Starting with the PUD or Planned Unit Development Agreement, this is the first action that the other two items will be contingent upon. Resolution 12-2026 had two conditions that related to council's discussion for this evening. Emphasis was added to the first one. Specifically, one of the conditions noted that the volume of cars sold, shown, sold, and serviced should be noted within the development agreement. The applicant and developer has submitted language and a letter and will elaborate in their presentation, but has sought to remove that condition and has sought to, or has offered their explanation that the current site conditions, limitations on exterior storage, and where parking are located for vehicles for sale will limit the total number of sales on the site effectively, better than what a overall number would in this instance. Additionally, there was a condition added by City Council that the City Council has not yet seen the final site plan, that a modified sidewalk plan be added to combine the public and private sidewalks and do a public-private partnership and an easement. That has been completed. So the revised site plan now connects from Central Avenue, creates the boulevard that Council was seeking between Wayzata Boulevard and the roadway itself, I should say, and the actual site. They did still need all of the deviations that were requested in order to have contingency, so it was a good thing that council did bring forward all the deviations in addition to this modification. But this does create a good condition. Hennepin County has reviewed this as well and is supportive of the project. No additional right-of-way will be needed in order to do this, and there will only be a small easement with the city of Wayzata that will allow for the shared sidewalk from Central over to the western portion of the site. To go into a little bit further detail on the applicant's request, this is a lot of text for a single slide, but the areas of note are the redlining of text that the applicant has proposed. The stricken areas are the areas that staff and the city attorney have put into the development agreement that are consistent with Resolution 12-2026. The applicant has added additional clarification on exotic and what that would mean for the site, but has sought to remove the condition and the specific language related to the number of vehicles shown, sold, and serviced. If council has any questions on that, we can flip back to this, or I can answer them before we move on to the next portion. I'm open to either way.
Yeah, I think let's get all the package of information so
good.
that we can then, direct our questions to the total project.
So the proposed motions for this are an either-or option, and it would, as I had stated before, would either be to approve the PUD agreement with the applicant's requested revisions, including the removal of the condition in Resolution 12-2026 related to the volume of vehicles displayed, sold, and serviced, or to approve the PUD and development agreement without the applicant's requested revisions, or the council may seek to provide additional modifications that might be inconsistent with Resolution 12-2026. Moving on to the rezoning, this is a standard step at this point in a PUD general plan approval. So the general plan has now been approved, and the map change amendment is a final step when we're bringing forward the development agreement typically. So the request for this evening is to rezone from the C3 service district to PUD planned unit development. This is a change that you will see on our zoning map. This is the only change that happens. It's not actually within the text of the ordinance. Zoning map revisions require council action. In this case, as I noted, it would move from the C3, which you see on the left-hand side of the screen, to the planned unit development designation on the right side of the screen. This would be an item that the Planning Commission actually held the public hearing on all the way back in January. They did unanimously recommend approval of that and directed staff to prepare the report and recommendation. On February 9th, they formally acted on that recommendation. During that time, they did include additional conditions or include additional recommendation to City Council that the council consider stronger conditions such as the vehicles sold and serviced which is part of the reason why that ended up within the draft resolution. The Planning Commission only provides the recommendation on this action item, which is why I've got their public hearing and recommendations included as part of the rezoning portion. The proposed motion for this item is to approve the first reading of Ordinance 860, amending the official zoning map of the City of Wayzata to rezone the property from C3 Service District to PUD Planned Unit Development District. The final item before council this evening is the item that requires the vacation, as the mayor had, the public hearing, as the mayor had noted, and that is the vacation of the drainage and utility easements. I had previously presented some of this information to make sure that council would be aware when we needed to bring it forward. I also presented it for context to the Planning Commission, even though they are not a recommending body on this action. The applicant is proposing, the western parcel was previously platted, and when it was platted, perimeter easements were added, which is now a standard condition when plats are brought forward. These perimeter easements are 10 feet along public right-of-ways and 5 foot to the interior. For the ease of legal description, we have worked with the applicant to vacate all of these easements on the property. However, when the final plat is approved or is recorded, it has previously been approved, the only portion that would not be rededicated is the area shown in green, in the green circle here, and that is the north-south portion that was a 5-foot easement only on the western side of that line. And that's because that drainage and utility easement would actually run directly through the structure, and was only intended to be a perimeter easement, not an easement through the site. Sorry, I wanted to mention that the red box demonstrates the areas that when the final plat is recorded would be rededicated with that plat, so the city would retain all of the easements that we need for future utility work and for any other utilities that would need to utilize that site. Vacation of drainage utility easements has some special conditions to it based upon state statute and city ordinance. So notice was sent to all the utilities that were operated in that. Staff ensured that we contacted all the utility companies and sent them notice. That was sent on April 6, 2026. The public hearing on the vacation is required by City Council. That will be opened and is required to allow for additional comments in case there are any other utilities that it could express concern. And as of today, we have not yet received any comments. To the contrary, we actually did do a locate. There are no utilities that we are aware of or that during the locate process identified themselves within that easement corridor. So we are fairly confident that there will not be easements or will not be utilities disturbed or needing relocation, but that is the purpose for the public hearing. One item of note for the vacation for City Council is that by state statute, a 4/5 vote or supermajority vote of City Council is required for a vacation of drainage utility easements. The action for Council this evening, again contingent upon the first action, would be the adoption of Resolution 20-2026 approving the vacation of drainage utility easements at 1022 Wayzata Boulevard East. The proposed motions before the council this evening, just to summarize things together, are the PUD agreement with an A or either or for A or B, and then contingent upon that action would be the rezoning and vacation of drainage and utility easements. With that, I stand for questions.
Yeah, and just a reminder to those in the public, if you want to speak on this topic, please fill out a card and give it to staff so that we can capture that in the public comment part of this. With that, I would turn it over to council to ask questions on these three steps: the PUD agreement, the first reading of the ordinance 860 rezoning, and the vacation of draining and utility easement. And then we'll give the applicant a chance to make their presentation. We'll have a chance to ask them questions before we go through the public comment and public hearing and bring it back for deliberation. So does anyone have questions of staff on these three topics?
I'd love
ahead,
to ask a
Councilmember.
question. Just real quick, Director Sharp, could you go back to the strike-through slide? I'd like to make a few notes of that before the applicant steps up to the podium. So name, volume. And what's the difference between the daily for service-related activities?
Sorry, sold and serviced, or?
The middle, the added red line, underlined, daily for service-related activities? Is that trying to extend hours of operation, or what?
So I believe the intention from that would be to limit the sales-related activities and the service-related activities and separate their different hours.
And that's different from how we had asked originally?
I think it's a further clarification, potentially. That was text recommended by the applicant. We
Yes.
provided the original hours, and I think it's a clarification of daily for service-related activities.
Yeah, and we'll give the applicant a chance to further clarify when, in their presentation, but your note for clarification is noted.
Okay.
Other questions, Ms. McDonald?
One more, just a side question. Recall the applicant was asking for a design deviation with the tree plantings in the boulevard. So was that remedied with the better sidewalk configuration? Or are they still asking to not plant the proper amount of trees?
Mayor, Councilmember, both deviations were required in some amount, so both were approved, the deviation for sidewalk and trees. The separation, both are needed in limited variety, however, there was improvement by allowing for additional space. So there are more trees in the area, but they still would have required the deviation.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Other questions of staff? Mr. Sorensen?
Yeah, just a quick one. Could you clarify, do the conditions of the development agreement run with the land?
Mayor, Councilmember, yes. Development agreements run with the land. They act as though they are the zoning district, so this would apply to Walser and any future users.
Okay, thanks.
Other questions of staff?
Yeah,
Mr.
one.
Pluckish?
Could you remind me of the history of how we got to the point where we're considering limiting the volume of sales? Because I don't remember us ever discussing that, and here we are considering it today.
Certainly. Mayor, Councilmember, where the condition started from was the report and recommendation from the Planning Commission, particularly that additional comment that they made on when they adopted the report and recommendation was the consideration of additional conditions specific to limiting potentially vehicles sold, vehicles serviced, or the vehicle test drives was more mentioned from City Council, but an item that had been brought forward and had been a concern previously amongst discussions. That was a draft included within the resolution that was brought forward to City Council, and based upon your discussion, it was not stricken from that item when it was brought forward, and so it remained within the resolution upon the final approval.
I agree with Councilmember Pluckish, though. I don't recall us debating that clause or that language in at least this body. It may have come through the Planning Commission, I understand, and it's actual to say that as the language came through, it didn't get pushed back explicitly from the applicant at the time. It now is, but I don't recall anybody up here offering any commentary on attempting to restrict sales. I'm just acknowledging Mr. Pluckish's comment as I read it or interpreted our deliberations in the same way.
Well,
At the council level.
If I may say, then I wish you would have maybe rewatched our last meeting, because I asked several questions of the applicant to try to get to those very answers. And I was hoping tonight that those answers would be given, and but instead of those answers of volume of sales, used car sales, service, it was trying to get at the idea of the volume of a car dealership will have next to a residential neighborhood. I asked the applicant several questions, was given 0 answers, and was looking forward to those answers tonight. But as I see, it's just been redlined, so just
yeah,
wanted
no,
to
we'll-
correct
we'll-
your memories that.
Well, we'll certainly have a deliberation on whether or not that's an appropriate restriction, but I don't recall debating it. I do recall you asking questions, but I don't recall us weighing in as a body about whether that's an appropriate provision to be part of the agreement. That's all I'm.
Okay, I just wanted to make sure that you weren't giving the public the impression that this wasn't discussed, because it was.
No, I intentionally used the word deliberated, right? Certainly questions were asked about it, but we didn't debate whether or not a sales restriction should be part of the PUD, and so that's all I'm saying. So we will have plenty of time to debate it, for sure. Other questions of staff about these three components? Hearing none, I would invite the applicant or whoever is being designated by the applicant to offer their perspective on these three items.
Mayor, council members, thank you. Appreciate the opportunity to speak this evening. My name is John Brennan. I am the general counsel and representative for Walser Real Estate. And I just have a few brief remarks, and following that, we'll have plenty of time for myself or my team who's with me tonight to answer any other questions you might have. We're looking forward to talking. First, Walser appreciates the thorough and thoughtful review the city has given this project. We fully understand and respect the city's responsibility to ensure that new development fits the community, protects nearby neighborhoods, and does not create unreasonable impacts related to traffic, noise, or intensity of use. Walser shares those goals, and we've agreed to nearly every condition in the proposed development agreement. Our sole issue is with a cap on the number of vehicles that may be sold or serviced at the site. That condition is not appropriate land use regulation, is not imposed on other retailers in the city, and most importantly, is unnecessary given the extensive restrictions and safeguards already built into this project. So let me briefly explain that in just 3 quick minutes here. First, the city already has strong traditional protections built in. This project is subject to a comprehensive set of conditions that do effectively regulate the type of use, intensity of use, and physical characteristics of the site. Those are the areas where zoning and permitting traditionally and have been properly focused. Under the proposed development agreement with Walser's Red Lines, the city has secured, among other things, a strictly limited building size, no more than 6 vehicle service bays. All vehicle inventory must be stored indoors. We have restricted the hours of operation for both sales and service, as was just discussed. We have predetermined test drive routes that avoid residential areas. We have robust requirements on zoning regarding noise, lighting, landscaping, the buffer that was discussed. And we even have a dedicated liaison within the Walser organization that would be there to field comments in case issues were to arise. And of most importance to this council, I believe, the site, further restricts the use to a high-end, exotic, new vehicle franchise, not a mass market dealership, with used vehicle sales only allowed to the extent connected to that new car franchise. So no used car only facility would be allowed with this condition that we're placing, which does in fact run with the land, as was pointed out. So this would proceed through Walser and any other further ownership. These final 2 conditions regarding the type of vehicles are clearly set forth in Section 5 of the development agreement before the council tonight. These aren't theoretical protections, they're binding enforceable conditions that again run with the land and do give the city that ongoing oversight and remedies. Taken together, they already define and cap the maximum intensity and traffic impact the site can physically generate. Second, another key area of focus I know for this body has been traffic concerns. Those, in our opinion, are also properly addressed. Traffic is governed by the factors listed earlier, such as building size, the number of service bays, parking capacity. Those factors, not sales totals or hard caps, determine how many vehicles can realistically move through the site. I would also note that Mulberry's dry cleaning, which will be raised in connection with this project, almost certainly sees more customers in any given month than would be anticipated at this dealership, which is replacing that dry cleaner. Sales caps do not materially improve the traffic outcomes, but it does generate ongoing enforcement challenges and uncertainty, and to our knowledge, no other retailer in the city is subject to such restrictions. Last, this project improves a long neglected site, as we all probably in the room know here today. The site has been rough, underutilized, and in visibly dilapidated condition for nearly 2 decades. It's not been a community asset during this time. The city has a rare opportunity here. This project represents a significant private investment in this long neglected property, transforming it into a beautiful new development, new jobs and tax base, by a family-owned and operated company that's been a staple of this community for over 70 years. I would also note the incredibly strong neighborhood support for this project that we've experienced to this point. It's quite rare in these circumstances, as you all know. In closing, the city already has ample protection to ensure this dealership operates exactly as intended and does not overwhelm its surroundings. And for those reasons, we respectfully ask the council to approve the PUD without a cap on vehicle sales or service volume and rely on the strong traditional safeguards already embedded in that agreement. Thank you for the time. I would also invite the team up in case you have any other questions that they might be able to address.
Yeah, just hang on there, and then if you have to rely on bringing somebody up, I'll turn it over to the council for questions of the applicant at this time.
I have a question. If no one
Please, Ms.
else.
McDonald.
Hi, thank you. So how many clients and customers and employees visit Mulberry's on a daily basis?
Our understanding is around 1,500 per month.
Okay. And then how many do you foresee coming to Lamborghini?
Respectfully, Councilmember McDonald, when we've tried to put numbers on a lot of this, feels like it's been used, frankly, against us a little bit to put hard caps in there, which is exactly the position that we're taking. We're seeking it without a cap, without numbers, without quantities. We're trying to give you a rough ballpark.
You just sounded so certain that Mulberry's creates more traffic than 8,000 square feet or 10,000 square feet of a car dealership. And I'm just curious how you know that so certainly if you don't have data on how many people will visit your car dealership.
Yes, thank you, Councilmember. Well, we do have our own estimates, but the point being, as I attempted to explain and perhaps did so poorly, Mulberry's doesn't have such a condition. Obviously, this council and this body didn't have a chance to put one on there. But in any event, whatever type of use would come to this facility, again, it would be our position, and we would advocate just as strongly for another third party, another business that would come into this, that they, whether they're dry cleaners or anybody else, not have such a hard cap on a restriction. But that other safeguards, many of which, as I enumerated, are into this project, those are what we would advise the council to rely on.
Okay, so you have the data, but you just don't share that with us. Is that?
Councilmember, previously, we have given estimates, but again, we simply don't want them to be written into an agreement. I would say further, I know I'm speculating a little bit here, but it is at least my opinion that there would be other businesses that would potentially come here and come here before you that would just say path of least resistance. We could agree to some cap. How are they going to enforce it?
But respectfully, I don't think that's what she's asking.
Okay.
I think she's simply asking, do you feel that the intensity of use will be less than a dry cleaner? And if you
We
looked
do.
at the aggregate visits, will it be less than what you're estimating for the dry cleaner? Is that kind of where you're
well, you just said it was such certainty, and I couldn't help but notice that certainty, and and I still don't understand it, how you can say it with such certainty that you have the data, but yet you won't share it. And it seems strange that you won't share it, and the reason why these safeguards are in place from the Planning Commission recommendations is because that information has never been shared. So we're trying to protect a dangerous road, a quiet neighborhood with a use that's never been in, our central core and on these roads. So it's hard to, without the data of what we can expect, the only thing we're left to do is put in some safeguards. And so that's exactly why I'm asking the question is, you're asking us to throw all of our safeguards out the window, but you're not telling us anything of why, other than you've never done it before.
Thank you, Councilmember. I understand. I would respectfully disagree with the idea of throwing all the safeguards out the window. We are respectfully asking
Okay.
for a quantity cap.
In terms of the Planning Commission recommendations of those volume and potential future uses, fine. So not every safeguard out the window, but the one in which that I've asked all these questions about is there because of the lack of response and answer is what I feel.
Thank you, Councilmember. I'm sorry to hear that. We have discussed in this body, I believe, numbers before. I don't have them in front of me.
No, you would haven't.
Okay, I apologize. In that case, I can tell you, I believe I said we're quite certain it would be less than a dry cleaner. But again, I simply, I'm not sure how else to say. I apologize for not doing a good job of addressing your concerns here, but simply that all of these other safeguards combined, in our opinion, and ultimately it is only yours all that matter, adequately address the concerns expressed by this body.
Yeah, and I would encourage us to continue to ask the questions. I think they're very valid questions, Councilmember McDonald. I know you're not getting a satisfactory response. I understand that. But let's
Yeah.
make sure that everyone has a chance to ask questions of the applicant so that we can draw out all the
Of
information.
course. I didn't mean to jump in, but
No.
you were trying to
Absolutely.
clarify what I was asking, and I didn't think
may
it
not have
was,
helped.
I didn't think I did a good job, so I decided to jump back in. But I appreciate.
Yeah, I mean,
the
maybe as we go
assistance.
through these line of questions, I
Yeah.
think the question behind the question is it a less intensive use? And can you quantify that in any way? And I understand and respect that you're trying to not have a sales limitation restriction, but I think what I hear some of the questioning previous and maybe again tonight can you provide any dimensional numbers to the intensity of use, of number of, visits, number of car showings? Not necessarily, we're not trying to limit your sales, at least I'll speak for myself. We don't want to limit somebody's success on a property. We just want to get confident that the safeguards that we've put in place have a less intense use than what was previously there, and so that we can get comfortable around it. So, I mean, you did offer, I think, directionally, although we bounced all over the place a little bit, about the anticipated number of units per month that you might have sold, et cetera. And that's, I think, what Councilmember McDonald is pushing on. We never got a concrete answer. We got a lot of meandering around and coming back to, we don't want you to limit our sales. We don't want to limit your sales. We want to limit the activity and the intensity of the use.
Sure, understood. Thank you, Mayor. So in terms of Liberty, so far the language we had proposed was in fact a limit on both visits and on sales, both. And so if it's more about not sales but simply visits, because that is the traffic and that generates the intensity, that is probably a different question. I apologize. I don't know I don't have that information of exactly what a comparable Lamborghini dealership would be in front of me tonight.
Yeah, before you get there, let's just let other questions, and I want you guys to think about how you're going to respond before we kind of get into an unproductive dialogue around, of hypotheticals here. Are there any other questions of the applicant? And then I certainly will give you, Mr. Walser, a chance to address this. Are there other questions of the applicant? Mr. Sorensen?
Yeah. So, what we have in front of us is this Article 5, and it's something we proposed and something you edited. I mean, in that process, were there other language that you all suggested that we could consider to expand and strengthen some of the commitments that have been made beyond exactly the words we're looking at here in Article 5?
Yes, thank you, Council Member. I did have quite a lengthy discussion with City Attorney about some of this language as I tried to express Walter's position on it. It is difficult where it feels in some way binary, right? Where there's either a number or there's not. There could be squishier language that, to use the legal term, that we could insert. But again, I don't know how that would be enforced. I don't know what sort of meaning it would have for either side. And again, it seems like we would rather address it with these other traditional means rather than inserting ambiguous language in the agreement.
So it doesn't sound like there was a lot of back and forth on language.
We did not find a good resolution to answer your questions.
Okay, thanks.
Other questions of the applicant?
Think about it in a little bit different way.
Mr. Cook?
Can you remind me how many indoor parking spaces there are to hold inventory?
There are 20 spaces indoors.
20 spaces. So worst case scenario, they sell all 20 cars in one day. You've got 20 people coming and going in a day. That's worst case scenario.
Oh,
There's no way they're going to sell 20 cars, but that's just looking at it from a practical standpoint of if they sell out every day, you got 20 people coming and going.
right. And Councilmember Cook, I agree with you, but they also sell used cars and service cars, so,
But those have to be stored inside too.
Yes, correct, Council Member.
okay.
Yeah, and the other thing that I did see remain in here that runs with the land is it's intent to not have a mass market dealership. It's intended not to have used cars exclusively. And I think part of what I heard as the hypotheticals that we debated were, well, what if this changes hands and we get a used car lot? And I'm confident that you have language there that addresses that component of it. I think the remaining sticking item that I hope we can get to tonight is, how do we guide the least intensive use, but still make you successful in selling and servicing cars? That's your purpose. It's not, in my view, government's role to prevent commerce. And I don't hear that from this body. It's more about activity, not trying to limit the number of sales or the number of cars you service. It's just the intensity of traffic, people driving in and out, walk-ups, all that stuff is what I heard as the more primary concern. So, other questions, and then we're going to go to the hearing and then take public comment, and then we'll bring it back for deliberation. And we reserve the right to ask you back up to clarify any data that we need as part of our deliberations. Are we okay with that? Mr. Schelzel?
Mayor, if I could just have a moment, I want to acknowledge council's remarks, and I appreciate them. I think he's been very accurate. I just want to let you know that he hasn't said anything that I disagree with or misrepresented our conversations. I think they were very gracious and very reasonable on all the elements of the agreement, except this one. So the second point I'd want to make is on Section 5, I think, Councilmember McDonald, the language you were asking about daily for service-related activities, that shouldn't be appearing as a change. The applicant may have caught it, but I would have agreed for that. That was a clarifying either miss in one of the drafts. Really, the two I would focus on are the first section where volume Lamborghini is changed to exotic automobile, and then the applicant's given us a definition of what exotic automobiles are there. So I think the only thing for council to reflect upon there, are we okay shifting from any reference to volume and limiting it to Lamborghini to maybe another exotic automobile brand, which I've learned is a very rare brand indeed. It's not Porsche, right? It's not Mercedes. It's, I don't know, you guys gave me some examples. I don't even remember what they are. But that's what the parentheticals meant. So I just wanted you to be fully aware of what that change implied or carried with it. And the real one that we've been discussing is further down in the middle of the paragraph, all the reference to volume of cars. So I just wanted you to have that information from me.
That was really helpful, City Attorney. That's why the middle one I wanted some of that clarification.
Yeah, understandable. I apologize that wasn't caught before packet.
Can I make a comment? Because I actually think that daily for service-related activities line is actually important, because that specifies a limited hours for service. So I actually want that in there. I don't want to strike
I do as
that.
well, Councilmember. Like I said, I think that's an erroneous red line there. That should have been accepted.
No, isn't that an addition? I look at that as an addition, not a striking, right?
Well, if it was struck at one point, I accepted it. So I agree with you. It's good for the city.
Okay.
Yes, Council, if I could quickly elaborate, I completely agree with everything City Attorney said. And yes, that comment was added by me in the first draft simply as a corrective measure. Without that, it ends right at 6 p.m. Clearly, there was extra language that was somehow missed on the first draft. I simply added it back.
All right. Yep. Okay.
Any further questions? Okay, so we'll reserve the right to ask further questions when we get into our deliberation. What I'd like to take care of now is the public hearing related to the vacation of drainage, and then take any public feedback that the audience wants to offer on the project in general. So what I'd like to do now is formally open the public hearing and see if there's any public comments on the vacation and drainage of the utility easement. So I'll open that hearing. Do we have anyone on Teams, and do we have anyone that wants to comment on the vacation of drainage and utility easement?
Mr. Mayor, we do not have anyone on Teams. I do have one item submitted, but it's not clear if it's for the utility easement or just in general. Greg, are you planning to speak on the drainage and utility easement, or would you like to comment later?
Perfect.
Great.
Thank you for that clarification. So I'm now hearing no one want to comment during the public hearing. I'm going to close the public hearing. So it is now closed, and we've met that statutory requirement. Next, I'm going to accept public comment on the project in general, and I believe we have one card that constitutes that. So we invite you to the dais to provide us your input, please. Mr. Hoagland, welcome. Thank you. And
Thank you, Mayor and Council. I had no idea I was even coming to this meeting, let alone I'm the neighbor to the side of the property, and I have been at all previous meetings, Planning Commission and what have you. It's my understanding, I've heard several times, that this is a boutique dealership and they sell less than 50 cars a year. That may be accurate or not, but I am not concerned about the volume. The only thing I was going to say when I'm watching this is I've been to many council meetings over 20 years, and I cannot really remember a council meeting where we're putting up the developers agreement and looking at red lines in a document, okay? I don't know how we got here, but it seems really interesting to me, number one, that's up here. Number two, I'm not a lawyer, but there has to be some precedent. If I just went to, I'm trying to think of Walgreens across the street. Is there language in Walgreens that says how many customers will be coming through this on a daily basis? Because there's neighbors next to them, and that they can only sell X number of dollars or units. And I cannot fathom, I'm not a lawyer, that there's precedent where you're asking a company to list out their sales data in a legal agreement. I'm not a lawyer, but I just wanted to make that comment. I rarely see red lines in a city council meeting. I'm supportive of this development, and I don't really know how we just got into that discussion, but I'll leave it to you guys.
Yeah, thank you for your comments, Mr. Hoagland. Are there any other folks with a card or on Teams?
Mr. Mayor, they are not.
Okay, so I'm going to bring it back to the council for deliberation, and as was guided, we need to take this in three parts. The first is to have some deliberation on the PUD that really has an option A of what was previously there, and an option B, which is what we had a little back and forth on questions around volume of vehicles displayed, sold, and serviced. So who would like to begin our deliberations and weighing in?
I'll start against Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, Mr. Plekish.
It is interesting. I had also never seen a red line situation, but on that point, I think those red line additions or subtractions make sense to me. When I read that, and that was the reason for my question, I don't remember us getting to the point of even contemplating restricting sales or anything. I mean, retailers are all in the business of making money, and I just can't imagine us restricting it. It reminded me of the book by Ayn Rand, Atlas Shrugged, that this would be the means of controlling production, and I'm not there. But we want this to succeed. And I do remember a number was thrown out early, I think the very first time you appeared, that there was something like one vehicle per week or something, some very, very small number for any kind of a car dealer. And that's not a high volume. And I can't imagine that somebody could walk in off the street and go test drive this thing. They're not going to let you do that. And as I recall also, that most, if not even all, of the new car sales would be pre-sold. So they're really just delivering what somebody ordered from before, and they might take a trade on that, but they're generally going to trade, say, a Ferrari for a Lamborghini. So again, you're not going to have people walking in and test driving these things. And then if I want to compare it to a dry cleaner, what's the average sale of a dry clean? I don't know, $8 for a shirt? I mean, they got to have a lot of volume to make up for sales versus one Lamborghini. So yeah, I don't think that's a problem, theoretically, whatever that number might be. But I also know that the neighbors are very much supportive of this. And if there's anybody in our community that would be objecting to anything here, it would be the neighbors. And I don't recall a single neighbor having a problem with this. So I think the red line version is the one that makes sense for me, and that's the one I would support.
Thank you, Mr. Plekish.
Are we talking about the others? Or just
Yeah, do you have any other, you don't have to weigh in on the other ones, but do you have any comments on the other two provisions, which is the rezoning and then the vacation?
Well, I'll just wrap it up and say both of those items make perfect sense to me. This business wouldn't be the business if it didn't have these things. It has to have it, and I don't see any downside for either one of them.
Thank you, Mr. Plekish. Who would like to weigh in next?
I'll weigh in next.
Thank you, Ms. McDonald.
As some of you may know, I am in retail, so I also can't imagine someone telling me that I couldn't sell the amount that I set a goal to sell. So I just want to explain why that information feels relevant to me to understand what the impact of a car dealership is. I know you guys all don't kind of think of it as a car dealership, but someplace where you buy a car, service a car, and trade in your used car, that's a car dealership. And the other thing looming in my head is the feedback I get. The most often complaint from my constituents is noisy, loud vehicles. As a retailer, I also know that when you have one retailer and you have another, they don't compete. They draw more in. And so we have a car kind of culture down on Lake Street, much to the dismay of the residents I hear from. I may even heard a colleague of mine up here say to the officer who was in the community room this morning, keep an eye on those loud cars or something. And that's another big concern of mine. And so that's why I've been trying to get a handle on this volume, because of the disruption this kind of car brings to a small town of 1.5 square miles, 4,500 people. So it's not about trying to keep you from doing good, positive business. It's trying to decide if that good, positive business deserves, or should be, not deserves, pardon me, belongs in a central core lot next to a very difficult road that's hard to navigate. That's why I felt like if I had the data, that I would have a better understanding if the impact was going to be as bad as the worst fears or as better than could ever be expected. Without that, you're left with a mystery and relying, like their attorney said, on our existing guidelines already. With this PUD going with the land, I think we should look harder at if we're going to allow the strike of the brand name to go away. There was a definition on the screen of what exotic meant, but I wonder whose definition is of that. Is that a universal definition of exotic? So to me, there's a red flag. Volume of cars, a bit onerous, to say the least. Hard to staff to keep track of that without asking for financials or, all of that. So I think we should look a little more closely at allowing non-Lamborghini, this could be under a new owner someday. Now it's still a car lot or a car dealership, and exotic could mean, it's a very broad word. High performance, rare. I'm sure you could find, anyways, I think that's, I'd like this body to consider that Lamborghini strike through.
Meaning restore it?
Restore it.
Okay.
Yeah, the whole time it's been Lamborghini, 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 and now today, or this packet, it's, well, maybe exotic. So that to me, all of this has felt a little bit of a withholding situation. That's why I've really struggled with it. So I thought the recommendations from the Planning Commission were flawed, but the reason for putting them in was very pertinent to the discussion, which was the amount of use. And that's why they were there. And that's why we were supposed to heed that advice and really get to the bottom of this, if this use is appropriate or not. The support from the neighbors, as I said last time we were here, did weigh heavily on me as well. So there were a few across the way that were a little concerned about it. So That's where I am kind of falling down on this. Is that Lamborghini strike through, that's problematic in my mind. But the 2 and 3 of the items, the asks, I think seem pretty reasonable, of course. The vacation and, oh gosh, someone remind me what the
Yeah,
middle
so
one
it's the
was.
vacation and then it's the motion to approve the rezoning.
The rezoning, of course, to the PUD. So that's where I'm landing on that so far. That's where I'm thinking, and I just thought I would weigh in because I know I've had some reservations and wanted to share those with the colleagues up here.
Thank you, Ms. McDonald. Who would like to go next? Mr. Sorensen?
Yeah, sure. Well, I think there's been so much conversation about this going back to the planning commission and our previous discussions, and I think in general senses that we kind of had is that through conversations and the way this was described in the usage is that this is going to be a pretty good use. It is a difficult site, and I think the reason this is getting so much attention is because the critical nature of traffic in and out, and we just can't generate too much traffic here. It's going to be a mess for the city. And that's why it's getting so much attention, I think appropriately so. And, you know, we were, through discussions, we were led to believe this is going to operate as a boutique facility, off-site sales, low volumes. Numbers were thrown out when asked, and they were quite low. I think that's what got us comfortable a bit. You know, I think the question in front of us is, do we have enough safeguards in place with what we know about the facility and what's in the development agreement now, that we really believe that the volumes are going to be appropriate. You know, it did strike me a bit as being a little much when we were trying to talk about limiting the number of units being sold, et cetera. And the business I was in and other businesses that deal with, I mean, you put a cap on revenues, do you put a cap on units sold anywhere else that was mentioned? Maybe not the best way or appropriate way to really deal with what we're concerned about here. So, you know, generally, I guess what I thought is, have we worked hard enough on the language we have in Article 5 to make it as strong as we possibly could? That's why I asked the question, how much debate has been back and forth on this issue? And I still have that question a bit. I mean, typically in negotiation, there's a lot of back and forth, and it felt to me like we offered a development agreement, and there's a couple red lines, and we stopped negotiating. I guess the question would be for us a bit is, you know, would it make sense to direct staff to have one more shot at this Article 5 here and, you know, include and acknowledge things like traffic being, you know, critical to the use of the site, and acknowledge the operating model that we were told was going to be in place here, and acknowledging that the volume of cars being sold would be consistent with that boutique approach. I mean, it's all a little bit softball stuff, but that may be another option for us, is to, I don't know what the motion would be to not make a decision tonight, but have another shot at this and make it as strong as possible, but allow the strikeouts for the volume of cars. Because I think we're left with using our own judgment from everything we've heard. Is it our opinion that the way this will operate, from everything we do know, is going to be appropriate for this site? And I tend to believe it is. And the comment was made before, if not this, what? I still think that's a legitimate issue for us. So those would be my thoughts about it.
Great. Do you have any comments or perspective on the rezoning or the vacation and drainage and utility easements? Just trying to draw everything into one package here.
No, not really. I'm fine with both those.
Thank you. Mr. Cook?
Yeah, I'll start by saying I have no issues with the zoning and the vacation items 2 and 3. Those are very procedural, and I'm totally fine with those. I'm in favor of the language in this agreement. I think that we have enough safeguards in here. I think, Councilmember McDonald, I understand, this agreement runs with the property. So if you define exotic, how do you define that? Back when I was in high school and college, my Pontiac station wagon was pretty exotic to me. It's not, but I think, the language, rare, high-performance vehicles characterized by high cost and produced in limited numbers, that really kind of sets some very strict parameters around there. I mean, they're not going to be selling Kias out of here. I think there's enough guardrails there. I also think that there's enough guardrails in the limited storage on site. They can only sell, they can only house things that are stored inside and sell that. 6 service bays. It all seems very reasonable to me. I don't know how we would even begin to set limits. And I think we're probably past the limits on sales and all that. It seems like we've got consensus that that's, so I won't pick at that. I do recall that we had concerns about traffic at this site when this came through. I think that how this is worded, and I think that in my mind, there are enough guardrails in here that sufficiently kind of limit the size and the traffic and the impact that this will have on the traffic in that space. And so for me, I think this is, I don't want to get into wordsmithing and nitpicking the details of an agreement like this unless I see any major red flags. To me, I don't see any major red flags in here. So it satisfies me the way this is written.
Okay. I'll weigh in last here. I'm fine with the rezoning. I'm fine with the vacation. Take that off the table. With regard to the PUD agreement, the only other thing that I would note is this provision that says used vehicle sales shall be permitted only to the extent that such business is ancillary to a new vehicle sales franchise. That takes off the table mass market, Toyota, Kia, all of those. And just the sheer cost of the land and the size of the site, really, you have to have, I think Mr. Plagas was talking about this, I mean, you have to have a lot of high volume, dollar volume, not unit volume, right, to make it work under any scenario. And I don't see it, if it does move into a different future use, it's likely going to be a different use, not a used car lot. And this language gives me comfort. The other thing I would say is, having lived on Huntington down below for 11 years, the benefit of all the drainage and all of the regrading and the huge burden that has on those adjacent properties, Mr. Straka, your apartment building, Marty and Bruce, the Fishers, it goes on and on. So that is a huge benefit to the neighborhood, and without having private dollars and investment to remedy that, that's been a long-standing 25, or Gordy, probably longer than that, issue with that embankment and the drainage and the runoff that's been really problematic for the neighborhood. So I'm in full support. I don't see any need to adjust the language, and that's all I'm going to say. So I guess what we need to do now, just procedurally, is take this in 3 parts. And the first part is to talk about the PUD, which we had the most robust dialogue about. And it's either accept the language that has been offered by the applicant revisions, revert back to what was in there previously, or to Mr. Sorensen's point, is there any tweaks or guidance that we could offer that might tighten the language to address some of the concerns? So I guess I would look for a motion of one of those 2 flavors, to accept the applicant's requested revisions or revert back to the previous. So who would like to make a motion in one of those directions?
Mr. Mayor, I'll make a motion that we approve the item A here. Option A is the PUD with the applicant's revisions in there. And I'll make one extra little comment. I know there was a sidebar discussion here about should we go back to Lamborghini in the thing. I don't think we should. I think this is actually better. I mean, what if they bring in Pagani or Bugatti or one of those other exotics? It's not going to really add. It's just guy's going to walk in and he say, "Oh, I don't want a Lamborghini. I'll buy a Bugatti." None of these cars are cars I could afford, for one, but that I would not feel comfortable driving them. I'm a Mercedes, Porsche type of guy. But with regard to the language, I think exotic is better. And I would also say that with regard, some of the concern was about people with loud cars on Lake Street and all that. People that have those cars are going to bring them. They're going to get them wherever they get them, whether they're here or Chicago. They're still going to bring them into town, and if they want to do exhibition driving, they will. And our good cops in the back will tag them for that. So it's a PSA to the folks out there listening to this. So I'm okay with the agreement just the way it's worded right now.
Okay, and so just for clarification, Mr. Pluckish, you would be making a motion to approve the PU development with the applicant's requested revisions?
Right.
Okay, thank you for that. I would need a second, oh, go ahead, Mr.
Mr. Mayor, I just wanted to be really clear for the record. Part of that motion is to essentially revoke that one condition that was in your previous resolution, which required a condition on volume. So just as it's stated there, I just want to make that clarification for the record that it's that full action.
Well, I'm reading your language of what the motion would be in this regard, so thank you for that further clarification. So we have a motion to approve the PUD development agreement with the applicant's requested revisions. May I have a second on that?
Second.
Thank you for that second. Any further discussion?
So this motion is just for number one.
Correct, just part A,
Correct.
right, the PUD development agreement. And then we'll take the other in a separate motion and procedure. So I have it moved and seconded. Any further discussion on this?
Just a quick comment.
Please.
Again, not want all of our businesses to be successful. So, but the switch at the 11th hour with the name and the brands feels withholding, and so I will be voting no for the PUD development agreement.
Thank you for those additional comments. So it's been moved and seconded. So I will, all in favor say aye. Aye. Those in opposing?
Nay.
That passes 4-1. So the next procedural aspect to this is I need to have a motion to approve the rezoning, to approve the first reading of ordinance 860, amending the official zoning map of the city of Wayzata to rezone the property from C3 Service District to PUD Planned Unit Development District. Could I have a motion to that effect?
So moved.
May I have a second?
Second.
Any further discussion? Hearing none, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? That passes 5-0. The third component of this procedurally, is I need a motion to approve the vacation of drainage and utility easements and adopt resolution 2026, approving the vacation and drainage and utility easements at 1022 Wayzata Boulevard East. May I have a motion to that effect, please?
So moved.
Thank you. May I have a second?
Second.
Any further discussion? Hearing none, all in favor say aye. Aye. Those opposed? Hearing none, that passes 5-0. So just for the record, 4-1 on the PUD, 5-0 on the rezoning, 5-0 on the approval and vacation. I just want to offer, sort of best wishes to you guys in being successful. We happen to have the ownership group, some of which who lives in Wayzata, so I know you're going to look after this in a very careful way, and I think you've heard our concerns, and I wish you well and success in bringing this forward. Thank you. Okay, next item on our new business is to consider approval of the first reading ordinance of 857 and 858, amending chapters 805 subdivision, park dedication, and fee schedule. So I'm turning this over to Ms. Yeager or Mr. Sharp?
Mr. Sharp will take this one too.
All right, popular guy tonight. Mr. Sharp.
Thank you, Mayor. As stated, this is to consider approval of a first reading of ordinance 857 and 858, amending chapter 805, the subdivision ordinance, specifically park dedication and the fee schedule. Going to go through this relatively quickly, as council did discuss this at a prior work session, but want to give the history for the members of the public that aren't as familiar with it. On January 20th, 2026, Ferndale Bluff final plat and development agreement was approved. The agreement reserved the applicant's right to contest those park dedication fees, and council directed staff and the city attorney to research and determine whether amendments would be recommended specifically for the cash in lieu of land dedication for park dedication. On March 24th, 2026, council reviewed the current park dedication ordinance, the state statute, and the proposed fee methodology developed in coordination with WSB and city staff. Specifically, Section 1006.15 of the city subdivision ordinance, specifically the public sites and open spaces, new lots shall dedicate land for parks, playgrounds, public open space, or trails, and/or shall make a cash contribution to the city's park fund. So all of the ordinance before this evening specifically relates to the cash in lieu where land is not a sufficient or applicable donation as part of the, or I'm sorry, applicable requirement as part of the development of the site. So the current requirements in ordinance as it stands today is that new residential units or properties must pay 10% of the land value or $2,500, whichever is greater. Commercial properties are required to pay 6% of the land value, whichever is greater. During our review at the workshop, staff did go through state statute requirements and some of the legal requirements from past or case precedent. Rather than go through all of that here, I'm simply going to state that there needed to be a nexus between the fee or cash in lieu and the demand created by the development of that specific parcel. What that means is that for the number of residents created out of that development or the number of visitors and employees out of that development, the cash in lieu fee needed to be proportional to the demand created. Staff's analysis, as stated, was with WSB. What we did is we reviewed the League of Minnesota Cities recommendations. We started from there. They provide a base calculation on a per capita basis that the city started from. So when we're determining that, we take the total number of residents divided by the total number of acreage of parkland that we currently have and our projected park need to determine a per capita need or basis for parkland within the city of Wayzata to maintain our current system. And then as additional development comes in, we would base the fee on the demand created proportional to those residents. As stated, WSB was engaged to do additional study and help provide recommendations of the fee in lieu of the park dedication. And one of the major findings, as no surprise for the city council, is that Wayzata land value is significantly higher than other metro communities. This value creates a per unit basis when you break it down on the math, or per 1,000 square foot basis for commercial properties that is higher than the surrounding metro. One of the comments that had been expressed during the workshop discussion was specifically about Burnsville's fee. And as you saw on the prior slide, there was a law case on that one specifically. At the time, I assumed I must have put the numbers wrong. Well, it was just because they actually did theirs on an acreage basis. For instance, their residential basis for single-family homes was valued at around $150,000, and ours is valued at $1.1 million. That's the difference and the scale as to why our fee needs to be proportional to our land values, and why you will see us having, and why our research found that we would be among the, if not the highest within the metro. During the discussions from council, there were, staff had brought forward a residential and commercial lot analysis. The discussion amongst council was that there may be need at a future date to differentiate between single-family, townhome, and multifamily uses. So rather than having the residential and commercial basis, we have added the ability within the fee schedule through the ordinances to go back at a later date and adjust those fees. For the time frame, the analysis and the consensus that staff had brought forward from council was that $12,500 as a cap on that fee would apply to all three. However, with it being within the fee schedule, it would allow for additional review at a later date should projects come forward. So we've set it up for potential changes in the future, while allowing the current analysis to move forward so that we can proceed with the ordinance amendments to date. Other actions from the proposed ordinance before you is that it removes all of the fee calculations from ordinance, which has been found to be a best practice. When researching this, around 95% of all cities are placing their park dedication fee within their fee schedule rather than within an ordinance structure. This adopts that fee schedule format, which is consistent with all of our other fees as well. The one caveat to this is during our final research, we did find that state statute still required the public hearing when fees would be in excess of $5,000. So we needed to push this item back and issue the notice for this item. Or, I'm sorry, publish notice in advance for this item, not public hearing. So it was properly noticed and was brought forward correctly in accordance with state statute, but we needed to, we couldn't bring it to the immediate next council meeting. The other item that this ordinance amendment does is provide credits for PUD developments. Specifically within the ordinance, you will see things such as pools, pickleball courts, and other amenities at multifamily facilities. That was quite deliberate, and it was also found to be a best practice among a number of cities that we researched. And that was done as a benefit not only for those residents and potentially reducing the park demand for the community, but also in increasing the value of those apartments and the quality of life for those residents of our community. So it really creates a win-win scenario for both the city and long-term, we still collect some of that back through the increased value of those amenities offered on the residential properties. And then the final item of note on this one is that this does require a second reading and final publication, so the full ordinance would not take effect until the final publication of the ordinance. One item that I would note, because we were reviewing a project just prior to this, and there was language specifically included in the development agreement related to whether this ordinance would move forward. There is a reduction in that 6% for commercial properties for that development specifically, and it's approximately, we need to come up with, depending upon how council changes this language, that's why we left it for a future date, but it would result in the savings and would be more proportional to the use created. So we've already seen our first example with a beneficial result. With that, the action before council this evening is to consider approval of the first reading of ordinances 857 and 858, amending Chapter 805 of the subdivision ordinance and the fee schedule. With that, I stand for any questions.
Questions of staff at this time? Ms. McDonald?
Director Sharp, could you give us an example of the recreation provided for the credit?
Yes. So listed within the ordinance are pools, volleyball courts, dog runs, tennis courts, gyms, outdoor park and play facilities, etc.
Yeah. Are they defined just like that, or, I mean, there's a dog run in the promenade, and it's this tiny little hidden area that I don't think anyone would ever actually bring their dog in there, let alone, so, I mean, I don't want to get too nitpicky or anything, of course, but I just feel if we're offering people credit to, are we giving them examples, or are we saying, put a dog run in, and, so just a little clarification there.
Sure, certainly. Mayor, council member, yeah, I believe the ordinance provides those examples through the list that I've gone through as much as I could. The nice thing about where this is lying, because it's within the planned unit development, that is where we can propose back and forth and ensure we aren't considering that this area would count, this area would. And that would traditionally, as council has seen, be negotiated and worked through from public comments, the planning commission, review of the plans, and then eventually bring that forward to city council for final adoption.
Okay.
So it would end up directly within an agreement.
Very good. That's what I thought you would say, and I'm glad to hear you say it, and appreciate your hard work and all the research on this one, too. So.
Mayor and council member and Director Sharp, I think if you look at page 244, section 3, the markup actually is some of the language that Director Sharp was referring to, and it does say that council may at its discretion grant a credit if it's part of a PUD. So there is that idea that council has the discretion, oh, this dog park is really nothing, this one really is something. And again, it'd be part of that larger PUD process.
Great. Thanks for the clarification.
Other questions of staff at this time? Okay, I'll bring it back for any further commentary or anyone that would like to weigh in on this in any way. No, I think it's pretty procedural. So I would accept a motion considering approval of the first reading of ordinance 857 and 858, amending chapter 805 subdivision park dedication and fee schedule.
I'll make that motion, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you. May I have a second?
A second.
Any further discussion? Hearing none, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, that passes 5-0. Sorry for the group to wait. You've been very patient now to the item that I think there's many people in the audience hanging on to talk about. Consider adoption resolution of 14-2026 denying the subdivision by preliminary plat at 190 Gleason Lake Road and 121 Glee Haven Road, tabled from the March 10th, 2026 meeting. Mr. Sharp, I'm guessing.
Yep, exactly.
Oh, I'll start on this one as well. Thank you for the introduction, Mayor. You've already gone through the addresses. The one item that I want to note, just so that no one thinks that there is a misspelling, the plat name is different than the road name. So Glee Haven is 2 words in the plat and a single word on the road name. So Glee Haven 3rd edition is correct. The owner of the property is David Heil, and the applicant in this, for this proposal is Lake West Development, LLC. The action requested this evening is the Planning Commission and staff recommend adoption of Resolution 14-2026, denying the subdivision request at 190 Gleason Lake Road and 121 Glee Haven Road. To provide context, this site is located at the southeast corner of Gleason Lake Road and Glee Haven Road, or County Road 15 for Gleason Lake Road. There are 2 subject parcels. Zooming out, it is part of a larger neighborhood on Glee Haven Road of 11 parcels. The site is guided, low-density residential, 1 to 3 units per acre. The proposal would still meet that maximum density, and it is currently zoned R3, single and 2-family residential district. Additional details on the parcels. Parcel 1 in this case is the southern parcel, is 0.6 acres or 29,800 square feet, and parcel 2, the northern parcel, is 0.73 acres or 31,680 square feet. To provide the council, I provided these for the Planning Commission as well, wanted to give some context. Things are, the addresses are slightly confusing because the address off of Gleason Lake Road actually takes access off of Glee Haven, and the site addressed off of Gleason Lake Road takes access off of I think I just said that twice, apologies. The access off of Glee Haven takes access off of Gleason, and the access off of Glee Haven takes access off of Gleason. So it ends up being a tongue twister, unfortunately, as I'm trying to say it out loud. It was much easier when I wrote it down. These are the areas to orient the council. As you would enter the neighborhood, the photo on the left is looking southward towards the existing home on the property. The driveway is just there on the right-hand side. This is 190 Gleason. This would be as you go around the bend in the neighborhood and view the property now from Glee Haven Road westward towards County Road 15, or which is, I think, what I'm going to refer to it to keep things easier on the tongue twist. You'd be facing towards that. You can see that there's actually a second driveway on that site, an access point. This is 121 Glee Haven. You are seeing it on the left-hand photo from Glee Haven Road facing County Road 15. And then on the right-hand photo, this is the access point from County Road 15 onto 121 Glee Haven Road. Originally, this neighborhood was platted as 6 lots in 1956, and at that time was zoned R2. Future subdivision in 1983. By this point, the neighborhood, this was of the 2 northern parcels that you'll notice were an exemption, were not actually within the city of Wayzata in 1956. They were annexed within the city at a later date. When they were brought in, they were subdivided, and at that time, the property was zoned R3. That rezoning occurred approximately in 1980. It appears to have happened as part of the comprehensive plan. There is no specific ordinance rezoning the neighborhood, So at that time, the comprehensive plan was being completed and was acted upon, and that was likely the action that resulted in the rezoning of the neighborhood. Since that time, approximately 1980, it has been zoned R3. In 2013, the property across the street approximately to the east of the two subject parcels was a single parcel and subdivided in Glee Haven Second Edition into two parcels. The proposal before the Planning Commission and then City Council is to subdivide 121 and 190 Gleason into 4 different parcels. These parcels, I will go through the zoning requirements, but ultimately meet the zoning requirements for the R3A zone. This is a hypothetical lot configuration, so when reviewing a preliminary plat, Planning Commission and the City Council are not reviewing actual footprints of homes. Those could come forward at a later date. They would occur as part of a building permit process, though, and would not be subject to additional council or Planning Commission review. Going through the actual requirements for this zoning district, you can see the R3 requirements are on the far left-hand side of the table, and all of the proposed lots meet the minimum lot size, the minimum lot width, minimum lot depths, the lot coverage, and impervious surface coverage. The proposed setbacks would apply to the proposed homes when they come forward for that building permit stage. Because this site is also within the Shoreland Overlay District, there's actually a reduced permitted maximum amount of impervious surface of 25% versus the 35% allowed in the R3 district. However, in the in the Shoreland Overlay District, you are permitted to mitigate that the impervious surface between 25 and 35% with stormwater treatment facilities. Those are being proposed as part of the project, and therefore it would be code compliant with the Shoreland Overlay Zone. The Planning Commission reviewed a lot area analysis, and the 2 highlighted parcels are the 2 subdivided parcels that occurred in 2013, so those are the ones directly across the street. As you can see, the proposed lots are smaller than most of the neighborhood. There are limited areas where they are close or larger, but the majority of the lots within the 11 lot subdivision neighborhood would be larger than the subject parcels proposed. Planning Commission had not seen this analysis, but there were a number of questions on it, so I wanted to help clarify. The lot widths are what is shown on this diagram here, and it shows the 87 and then 75-foot lot widths for the lots proposed, and then the existing lot widths for all of the properties within the surrounding neighborhood. One item of note for council is the lot width is determined at the setback, so the setback is 20 feet from the property line, and that is where the lot width is taken, which does often result in a wider lot width than what you will see for the line at the property line, and that's just simply due to the fact that most lots become larger as they move further back when you angle that line. So particularly on the cul-de-sac, that happens significantly. Part of the proposal was for tree removal plan. They have brought forward a plan that slightly differs from our standard practice. Typically, when we see removals of trees, we want to see replacement of trees on the same subject parcels. In this instance, staff and the city forester worked together with the applicant, as that would require all of the tree replacement to essentially occur on 1 to 2 parcels. And for a more desirable project, we proposed that they space some of those tree replacements out along the western side of County Road 15 if the project were to move forward. The Planning Commission did discuss this portion at length and was ultimately in support of this if they had recommended approval. However, I will go through in a moment. Their recommendation resulted in a recommendation of denial, which is why the resolution before you this evening is for a recommendation of denial to bring their recommendation forward. This is further elaboration of the tree replacement plan. You can see that that the trees were clustered towards the rear of the property to provide additional screening from a busier roadway, County Road 15. The city engineer did review the project and had no significant concerns. The primary items being brought up were disconnection of utilities, existing utilities to the two sites, and the fact that those needed to be happening in coordination with the county road, specifically County Road 15, if the project were to move forward. These would be added conditions on that. Want to still address them as they were comments on the project, but are not pertinent to the resolution of denial. A neighborhood meeting was held by the applicant on February 2nd, 2026. This was not required by our neighborhood notification policy. It was recommended by staff, and the applicant did so. They had reported that there was a single attendee, and they reported on construction timelines, and the history of the R3 zoning within that neighborhood was a source of question for that neighbor. A second neighborhood meeting, as the council was aware, was proposed and was the purpose of the delay and tabling of that item, and that was held on April 9th. There were 3 attendees, and I'll allow the applicant to provide a little bit more detail as to the nature of the discussion. But one of the items that was specifically shared out of that were some additional materials that the Planning Commission weren't able to see. These aren't changes to the plans or amendments to their application. They are clarification items based upon comments from residents and from the Planning Commission. Without wanting to take their full presentation from them, I've included some excerpts of this, but we have the full body of their presentations included within the packet that we can refer to as well. In terms of public comments, the city has received numerous public comments. Included within the packet was, to the publication date of that packet, were all the comments received. On the table this evening are amended or new comments. Often they may be some of the same as some of the past. However, rather than risk potentially ever leaving any out or any clarifications or changes to those comments, we've included them for the council's review on the dais, and they will be incorporated into the public record. These concerns namely noted increased density, tree removal, reduced property values, and the negative effect that the development would have on neighborhood character. These are the supplemental materials that were presented to the neighbor. As I noted, these are not going to be in full, so if there are specific items that the council members are aware of, I suspect the applicant will present some of these as well. So this was a graphic simply to show sample homes on the site and the setbacks between the homes and their place and potential placements on the lot. Again, I do want to highlight that these would be illustrative and would not be the actual footprints of the proposed homes until someone brought forward a building permit. Additional items shared were clarification on the setbacks. This could be difficult to read, but essentially it was highlighting what the setbacks between the sites would be. None of the numbers changed from what Planning Commission had previously reviewed. It was simply changing the coloration on the plans to further highlight what the setbacks are. Additionally, some new renderings were included that showed sample homes and a perspective from the property. Staff would note the proposed landscaping in these does not necessarily align with the landscape plan. They are intended to be illustrative in nature. Additionally, the landscaping would, as shown, would be within the right-of-way and would not be recommended, so they are intended for illustrative purposes. Please take them as such. When reviewing preliminary plats, there are very definitive provisions directly from code. I've included these within this presentation for council's deliberations. These were items that Planning Commission spent considerable time deliberating. In their recommendation, it was a split vote. So it was a 4-3 vote by Planning Commission to recommend denial, and it was a discussion item amongst them for quite some time. But ultimately, the recommendation did prevail of denial, and that's what's been brought forward for you this evening. I can happily go through each of these items. I'm primarily wanting to highlight that they are available and that the City Council and Planning Commission shall consider the possible adverse effects of the preliminary plat. With that, this evening, the action before City Council is to adopt Resolution 14, 2026, denying subdivision by preliminary plat at 190 Gleason Lake Road and 121 Gleehaven Road. The applicant is present this evening, would be able to provide comments, and I stand for questions.
Questions of staff at this time by council? Go ahead, Ms. McDonald.
Just back on your criteria page, one more, please. You mentioned building pads. If, Director Sharp, can you remind us if the building pads are part of the subdivision, or if it's just simply the lines, you know?
One moment, sorry, the computer's frozen. There we go. So the reason why I wanted to move back to this provision, Mayor, council member, is the building pad is essentially the dotted black lines. Those are the building pad is the area that you're able to build within, not a footprint. Those are two different items. So the pad is the square created by the setbacks, if it's a square lot. In this case, they are, except for the northern. So on the northern lot, that slightly triangular shape is the building pad, essentially. The footprint of the home or configuration shown here helps illustrate the difference between the two. Okay. They have demonstrated a building pad is sufficient and meets the site setbacks.
Very helpful, thank you.
Other questions of staff at this time?
So along those lines, though, if you can go back to that map, so that so that's the area where it could be, but the like impervious surface limitations, like there are other limitations that they couldn't build on that entire, within those entire dotted lines, right?
Mayor, Councilmember, that is correct. They're still held by all other setbacks, impervious surface, and building coverage.
Right.
At maximum height, all other provisions of the zoning ordinance would still apply.
Yep.
Other questions of staff at this time? Hearing none, I think would invite either the owner of the land and or the applicant. They have a chance to offer commentary at the dais or a presentation. Thank you. Welcome. State your name and who you represent, please.
Thank you. Kelsey Thompson with Lake West Development at 14525 Highway 7 in Minnetonka.
Thank you.
Good evening. Thank you so much to staff for your presentation and for working with us. And thank you to all the neighbors for coming out tonight. I know I've knocked on a few of your doors and maybe spoken to a few of you several times, but it's great to see you out here tonight. And thank you, Council, Mayor. I really wanted to touch on maybe just the finding of facts, just kind of going through those from the resolution to address those items. I think there's a little bit of confusion at the Planning Commission meeting, just based off of our grading plans and some of the claims that were in the findings of facts. At that time, we didn't have our engineer at the meeting, and we have, one of the reasons why we wanted to, postpone this meeting and request that extension was so that we could take some time to visit with the neighbors and host a neighborhood meeting, which a few joined that meeting, but to dive a little bit deeper into the grading plan and look at that 3D rendering. Basically, that 3D rendering just took that 2D CAD file of our grading plan and put it in 2D, and just to try to show a little bit more of that third dimensional view of the grading plan, to address some of those concerns. If maybe, Alex, if you could pull up just maybe like the zoning map, maybe to start, from your staff presentation. So just going through the findings of facts, finding 1A, I'm paraphrasing a little bit on this because they're a little bit lengthy, but not consistent with the comprehensive plan, respecting scale, character, and pattern. First, I just want to point out that this neighborhood is unique. There are lots that are narrower than others, lots that are wider than others, lots that are maybe shallower, lots that are deeper, lots that are bigger, lots that are smaller. We also see the neighborhood, which as the Gleehaven neighborhood outlined in colored in orange, that's R3 zoned, but there's also, you know, R5 around here as well with the apartments, the Gleason Lake apartments, and abutting the neighborhood. There's also that brown spot where there's 3 lots, 2 twin homes and a duplex in that R5 zoning as well. And then this abuts the commercial and the PUD, as well as the R1 residential across the Gleason Lake Road along the lake. So I'm bringing that up just because the character and the scale and the pattern, there's, you know, measurable and objective items that we looked at when looking at the character of the neighborhood. And when you bring that all together in picture, I think you'll see that we are meeting that scale and that pattern and the character of the neighborhood. In particular, our density is at 2.8 units per acre. This site, according to the comprehensive guide plan, is guided for low-density residential, which is 1 to 3 units per acre. So we're meeting that squarely within that 1 to 3 units per acre. Additionally, like right across the street, you can see those 2 little bit smaller lots across from the subject property. I don't know if there's a way to highlight that better on the screen, but that is the most recent subdivision, on the right-hand side, the most recent subdivision. That the result of that subdivision that was approved, it was exactly the same density, 2.8. So just looking at some of the characteristics of the neighborhood, that's, you know, we're definitely meeting the density there. And to move on a little bit to finding, some of these are a little bit redundant, so if you can just kind of bear with me, but moving on to finding 1B, that the concern being that our proposal does not relate to natural characteristics, in particular the slope and the topography. And yeah, maybe you could actually pull up that existing conditions with the photos of the actual properties, the existing properties, Alex, from your staff presentation. If that's too much, I'm sorry. So the existing conditions where you had the pictures of the actual houses that are, yeah, exactly. Just to point out, I think that there was just maybe some confusion on the grading plan, and that there was being called out like some steep topography. By code, we do not meet the definition of steep topography, and I think that the grading plan got a little maybe taken out of context and showing that there was steeper topography than there is, and some slopes. It's definitely sloped, as you can see, but we meet the requirements by code, and we do have our engineer here tonight to answer any questions, Dan from Sather Berquist, regarding our grading plan, should you request that. But the proposed grading plan meets the requirements of code without any variances, and was reviewed by the city engineer as Director Alex mentioned. And they agree that, you know, we're meeting the cut and fill and the average grade for this property that's required by code. We've minimized the grading. We actually, so the average that we're cutting and filling is a 1.6 feet. So definitely minimizing the grading, and we're improving the grading by better routing drainage and treating that stormwater. So right now it's uncontrolled, it's unmanaged. And so we will have better drainage and flow and treating that runoff. And to kind of further this with the characteristics of slope and topography, I also wanted to bring in the natural resources of trees. I don't think that was in the finding of facts, but it was brought up by some neighbors. And I think that just further solidifies that our grading plan really does minimize adverse effects by that we're only removing 9 trees on this out of the entire site. So that's basically 2 trees on average-ish per lot that we're removing. We're saving all of the heritage trees that are on the site. And this is in the landscaping plan that Alex had pulled up earlier. And then our landscaping plan that mitigates for the trees that we are removing, we're actually planting 25 trees. So removing 9 over this entire site. and planting 25. So again, the steep slope that was being called out in the finding of facts, it just simply, I don't know if it's just, somebody was being misleaded or if there's just confusion on the plans, but definitely not steep slopes on the site. And the 3D renderings really help showcase that as well. In finding one that's numbered in the document of the resolution and finding of facts, it talks about the adverse effect of having 4 narrow lots, smaller than most, changes the character, and the homes being closer together, and the homes being closer to the street. I just wanted to mention that those side yard setbacks, if you look at the existing neighborhood, and I used Hennepin County and just measured off the corners of the houses, there's like 4 or 5 lots that actually have a 10-foot side yard setback or less existing today. So to say that our proposal with 10-foot side yard setbacks would be out of character with this neighborhood is simply just not true. And you can fact check that, by looking at Hennepin County maps. We don't have the whole neighborhood surveyed, so that's what I used as the best resource that I had. We also, I think Alex had pulled up a lot width map, which I have not seen that document, and so I've not studied that. I did my own kind of measurements off of Hennepin County, and I got similar results, but I think that there's definitely some other lot widths within the neighborhood that are around 70 feet, 72 feet, a couple of properties. So we're not creating the narrowest lots in this neighborhood. Our lots, and I think that your table, Alex, was showing that we had 75-foot wide lots on lots 4, 3, and 2. And I think that might be just an error. Looking at our plans, our lots are, the lot widths are 75, 77, 81, and then the corner lot being 87 or something in that realm. So we're not creating the narrowest lots within the neighborhood. We're also not creating the smallest lots within the neighborhood. As you can see, there's varying, this is a great picture, there's just definitely varying lot widths, lot depths, lot sizes throughout the site. The smallest one being across the street in the most recent subdivision that was approved. It was like a 13,000-ish square foot property. Ours being like on average around 15,500 square feet. Again, all meeting the density guidance, all meeting the code for the zoning district. Regarding the distance from the houses to the street, that was also something that was brought up and actually put into the finding of facts, and this was discussed kind of at length, and unfortunately we just didn't have our engineer there on site, and it just wasn't corrected. But on our plans, of course, there's the 20-foot setback from the front yard that's required by code, but our house pads are showing like 3 times that amount away from the street. Whereas if you look through this neighborhood, you can see that there are some front yard setbacks that vary between like, there's a number of them at 20 feet for a front yard setback from the front property line. There's 30 feet, some greater than that. But 4 of these lots are within that 20 to 30 foot front yard setback, whereas our proposal is showing setbacks much greater than that. So he has his line at that front setback, 20-foot front yard setback. And our proposal is like 90 feet from the front yard. And a couple of things, not only is it, yes, there's the building pad like you asked, Molly, but we're also confined by a couple other things for how close our pads can get to the road, which is saving the trees. There's some heritage trees in the front yard, so we're saving the trees. Just like the overall slope of the driveway, we can't exceed, a certain percentage for the slope of the driveway. And also just that cut and fill average that we're meeting. The cut and fill average has to be under 2 feet. And again, our average is coming in at 1.6 feet. So if we can't exceed that as well. So that just keeps the distance from the front yard setback, was that point. Again, all of our setbacks meet code. I did touch on the closeness to the street, and I'd also just say, considering on what you define neighborhood as and where you're taking your character from, I don't know if it's just the Glee Haven neighborhood, but also we do have, like I said, the R5. You can kind of see those twin homes, like just in the backyard of the Passes residence at 133 Glee Haven. There's two twin homes there and a duplex, I believe, and those twin home lots are about 8,000 square feet. I know it's a different zoning of R5, but just kind of also giving some context that of the character of this entire neighborhood. We were required to send out meeting, for neighborhood meeting mailer invites. We sent them out to a 500-foot radius. So just thinking of that whole 500-foot radius, that also included the apartment building of the R5 zoning as well. Just taking in a little bit more context of the surrounding area. So I did touch on the lot width perspective, that we're not creating the narrowest lot, we're not creating the smallest lot, and we're really not creating any dissimilar lots. Again, there's varying sizes of lots, varying widths, varying depths throughout the neighborhood. We're not asking for a rezoning, we're not requesting to change the land use of this property, we're not asking for any variances. We're meeting all of the code. Another finding, and finding 3, it talked about just doubling the density being an adverse impact to the neighborhood. Again, the recent subdivision, the most recent subdivision directly across the street that was approved by council, doubled the density. It went from 1 lot to 2 lots, just as we're doing and requesting in front of you today. We're going from 1 lot to 2 lots, or if you want to say, 2 to 4. It's the same density, basically the same average lot size. And again, not creating the smallest of any of those criteria. Another finding was that just, again, it was a little redundant, the finding of facts, so I'm just trying to paraphrase them. But another finding in finding 4 is just that the layout does not reflect surrounding lots, that fewer and larger lots were preferred. And again, these were measurable, objective facts that we looked at around the surrounding area. And we do believe that that the 4-lot layout is reflective of the surrounding lots and in character. But while larger lots might be preferred, these plans do meet the comp plan. They meet the zoning requirement, they meet the density guidance, and they are within character of the neighborhood. And then finding 5, just again, it's very redundant, but lot sizes being dissimilar from most surrounding lots. Again, just not dissimilar. Again, Wayzata is a beautiful place to live. I think a lot of people like to live here because it is unique and it's not cookie cutter lots. We really do believe that given all the information that I've given tonight will help maybe clarify a little bit on just some of the confusion that was put into the finding of facts from the Planning Commission. And again, I do have our engineer here tonight. Kurt Fretham is here from Lake West as well. If you have any questions, I'm sure either myself or one of them can answer them. We appreciate this.
Thank you, Ms. Thompson. Any questions of the applicant from council at this time? Mr. Heil, as the landowner, did you want to offer any additional comments before I take input from the public?
Mr. Mayor, I don't think that Mr. Heil's here tonight.
Oh, okay. So, all right. So, are there any cards on this for additional public input?
Mr. Mayor, there is not.
Okay. So, I guess no further questions. Oh, Mr. Plekish.
Mr. Weil, who's not here, I guess he owns both of these lots, is that correct? Okay.
Yes, Mr. Mayor.
And was there ever any thought given to just replacing each lot with another home, so 1 for 1? Or maybe even going to 3 versus 2, and went from 6 to 5 to 4, why not 3, and why not just replace the 2 that are there? Is there any thought been given to that?
Some thought was given to that, I guess not really, Because it is zoned R3, which would allow duplexes, I do think that we could come forward with a plan that would do 2 duplexes and not have to subdivide the property. So we have considered that. That would also yield 4 units. We kind of started with a 5-lot plan that met all the zoning requirements, and then we door knocked around some of the neighbors, had a lot of conversation with city staff and decided to ultimately pursue a 4-lot plan. Pursuing a 3-lot plan or just knocking down those 2 houses that are there and building 2, homes was not something that we've considered.
Other questions of the applicant at this time?
Question.
Sure, go ahead, Ms.
I had
McCollum.
2 quick questions. Just following up from Councilmember Plekish's question about the 5-lot plan, or if you've considered that. You mentioned the 5-lot plan met the zoning requirements, but did it meet the density minimums there?
Yeah, Alex can speak to that as well.
Mayor, Councilmember, no, it exceeded the 3 units per acre, which is why staff informed the applicant that it would require a comprehensive plan amendment to bring forward that plan forward in addition to the preliminary plat.
Okay. My other part, thank you for that clarification. That's what I kind of wondered when I saw your narrative. It didn't seem to add up right to me. Are you building the homes?
Potentially, we haven't gotten that far yet, whether we will be the builders or if we will, sell to a builder.
The reason why I ask is the setbacks in the front are oh so generous, and they look really good, and they do, but that's just, that's a hope, not a promise per se.
Yeah, and I would just say to that wasn't direction under like Lake West. That was, our engineer's design on what would work with the cut and fill, the grading requirements, preserving the trees, the slopes, et cetera.
Okay, just wanted to clarify that. That's it, appreciate it.
Okay, I believe we did get one card for public comment.
Yes, Mr. Mayor, we did for Mr. Dan Poss.
Okay, just no other further questions of the applicant, otherwise we'll take feedback from you. Welcome, and please state your name and the group or neighborhood that you represent.
Hi, folks. Thanks for the opportunity. My name is Dan Poss at 133 Gleehaven Road. I'm the property adjacent to the development that's being proposed, just to the south. That was a lot of information. I don't know how you folks comprehended all that, or you did some studying beforehand, but I'm sure you didn't comprehend everything. I'm going to simplify it a little bit for you, hopefully. And our neighborhood is unique. It's a unique shaped road, and it's a cul-de-sac. So whenever you have a cul-de-sac, you have a lot of triangular lots. A lot of the triangular lots are a half acre or more. And just to give you a ballpark of the density feel of Gleehaven Road, it's on 6 acres. Have you, show of hands of people that have been through the neighborhood? Okay. And you notice where the development's going to be, there's really virtually no driveways coming out onto Gleehaven Road currently. So to say it's not going to change the character of the neighborhood, that's a pretty subjective statement to make. And I would say, of course, it's going to change the character of the neighborhood. Some for the positive, of course, new homes. They look real shiny and nice. But from a density standpoint, it's going to be tremendously character changing. Again, we have 6 acres with 10 homes prior to 2013. We're kind of using the precedents of what happened at 108 and 110 in 2013. But a half century before that, it was basically 10 homes. On 6 acres, that's 0.6 of an acre per home. I've been there 27 years now. So to say that if we keep parsing the neighborhood like this, which can happen, I think, Alex, you have a slide that shows it could be 9,000 square feet per resident lot. Okay, so now we have 10 that could be almost 30 homes in that neighborhood. I bring this up because I don't understand the zoning, and no one can explain to me why it got changed to R3 from R2. Again, we have 6 acres of land there with 10 homes, 0.6 of an acre. That's close to 27,000 square feet. And now it can go down to 9,000 square feet? It doesn't make sense to me. You know, we have zoning ordinances, I think, for the people that buy homes in the neighborhood, particularly the block. And so we're potentially going from 27,000 square feet to 9,000 square feet. That doesn't make sense to me. And in this case, we're going to go from 2030, we're going to go from 10 homes, and eventually it's going to be 20. It's just going to be. This is Wayzata. It's going to get parsed. And we're just wondering, from residents that have been there for 27 years, some 60, 70 years, most of the residents that have been there either died while living there or had to move for hardship to assisted living or something. So longtime residents there, because of the charm of the neighborhood and the feel of the neighborhood, being 10 homes on 6 acres. And so I talked to Alex a while back about, you know, how did this happen? How did it get to R3? How can it be now twin homes and the such on our block? When we have a pretty palatial feel, I'm sure some of you folks know of the Highcroft and Holdridge neighborhoods. It's a different feel when you drive through there, is it not? You know, and you can drive through because you can meander a little bit. Ours is just one block, but it's very similar. Think about lots that are over half an acre each. And so everything that Kelsey said is true. You know, those lots meets the minimums of some of the other lots, but that just happened, and we don't know why 2013 happened either as a neighborhood. Because it's R3. The city can't tell me why. It just is. For all I know, it's a typo. Literally. That sounds kind of smart, Alec, but it could be a typo. There's no record of why it's R3 from 1983 or the 70s or thereabouts. And Alex, feel free to comment on that. I think you said you scoured the history books trying to find the information, correct?
Councilmember, Mr. Poss, correct. In fact, the afternoon that you and I had met, I went over to the library in the basement. It does appear it occurred as part of the 1980 comprehensive plan. That's my best estimate. Other properties were changed at that time, but specific notation of this neighborhood was not included within that adoption of the 1980 comprehensive plan. So R2 became less prominent, R3 became more prominent in the 1980 comprehensive plan.
So you see where I'm here just to learn and get some qualifications here, because, you know, why do we have government, why do we have zoning? Well, it's for the people that literally live on that block also. And I've been here 27 years as a Wayzata resident, and no one can explain it to me. And so it's just a matter of time before our whole neighborhood gets parsed into a more typical neighborhood. And I just don't think that that should be the intention here. We all bought into this neighborhood thinking it was going to stay somewhat the same. Again, we've had changes to our east and to our west where the Hammer area is, and the twin homes behind us that are right on the county road. We understand there's always a buffer of twin homes sometimes before you get into the neighborhoods. Quite common. But in this scenario, I think you go from 10 homes to potentially, as the rules are written, could be 30 residences. That just doesn't seem proper to me or right. And if it is, I'd like to understand why. If somebody could explain it to me, I'd be anxious to know. But as a homeowner there for 27 years, I think I will describe the character of the neighborhood is the fact that it's not real dense, and it's 10 homes on 6 acres. And why we're subject to the liability of being parsed so significantly is pretty disappointing to me. And again, I think Lake West is offering a lot of great things as a developer and the Hiles, but my compromise would be 3 homes, so it is more of the average, which is about 20,000 square feet per property. And again, you know, you're talking about width of homes. When you're triangle home or lots, and you go 20 feet up, of course they're not very wide. But my house is still setback wide, and I have half an acre. So there's some tricks you can play with. It's a shell game a little bit here, right? Everything Kelsey said is true, but to get the overall arching feel of what our neighborhood, it's 0.6 of an acre is where it should be, I believe, zoned where it can't be subdivided to this degree. I'll make sure I don't miss something on my notes here. Oh, yeah, you know, steep slopes, that was mentioned also. And there is a pretty significant slope just to my north as I'm adjacent to that property. And Lake West said they'd work with us on that. Maybe somebody like myself would have to ask for a variance if they could shave it down farther. Of course, that's going to cost them money. But it's something that I would ask for is to lower the property. Oh, by the way, the character of the neighbor, it's all single-level homes.
Yep, Rambler.
Prior to 2013. So to say the character's not changing, I don't think that's that subtle, quite honestly. And so I would like to see if a project goes through 4, 3 homes, whatever, if we could have a variance to shave more of that lower. Because right now, if they put a home there that's 6 feet taller than mine, just within 20 feet. And so now you put a 30-foot home on next to my 15-foot tall home, it's just a little overbearing from that's a selfish request for me. If a variance like that could be talked about and agreed upon between the neighborhood, the council, and the developer and or builders, I just wanted to get that in here too, because whichever way it goes, that's a concern I have. Because it's a pretty steep difference. It's done in other neighborhoods, I know, but as long as I have the opportunity to speak on it, it'd be nice to, because we're all single-level homes, to knock that 6 feet down more than just the 2 feet, if possible.
For the grade.
The grade.
Yep.
Yes, and some of you may have been, I was just out there the other day with the developer and the height of it, and it's significant. None of these pictures really show it, quite honestly. You go
You
out
walk
there.
at street level, you really notice.
Yeah, you look across the street and you can see the top of the roof, you know, you're up there. So thanks for the time, and anxious to see what you folks vote on.
Thank you. Okay, so we now bring it back to council for deliberations about whether or not we want to affirm the denying of the subdivision or want to go a different direction. So who would like to begin our deliberations?
Can I ask a question?
Of course, Mr. Cook.
Director Sharp. So Mr. Post addressed the concern several times about the R3, the zoning for R3 or guidance. It happened in 1980. Can you confirm that it's been a part of every comprehensive plan? It's been guided that way for every comprehensive plan since 1980?
Mayor, Councilmember, yes. I can say with 100% definitive that it has been part of every comprehensive plan as R3 since 1980.
Which is at least 4 cycles.
Yeah, I'm trying to figure out if it's 5.
4.3 to 4.6 cycles,
Yeah.
right? So it's at least 4.
Yes. Yep.
Okay.
That is correct.
Mayor and council member, I just want to also clarify for the record, I don't think there's any question that that is the zoning now.
Right.
We may not know exactly when it happened or why there was a change, but it's been reaffirmed and recodified, so that is legally what the zoning district is. I just want to make sure there's no ambiguity about that.
Thank you.
Okay, other questions before we begin our deliberation? Who would like to kick us off? Mr. Sorensen, thank you.
Yeah. Well, I guess first comment would be like I'm typically very supportive and defensive of property rights. I think everyone should have a strong interest in their property and be able to do primarily what they legally can do. And also, I think Wes has been a really good partner in trying to come up with a plan that works here. It's clear everything that's been said and documented in the packet that a large percent or a large part of the subdivision ordinance criteria has been met. The issue I can't shake a bit though is the shape of these lots, the kind of narrow 75, maybe a little bit wider lots in this subdivision, which will, if you see, historically it would result in homes largely filling up. I think that that plot, we have 10-foot setbacks here, right? And I'm just, thinking of other areas where this has happened. So, Mr. Sharp, could you pull up the site plan that has the subdivision with the 4 lots shown? The one that has the whole street. Yeah, I think this this is what, as you drive through the area, I think I appreciate many of the comments Mr. Potts has made. Without this subdivision, the lots that are there, true, 3 of them have frontages along the road that are 68 to 80 foot wide. But they are either on the cul-de-sac or pie-shaped lots, which results in the distance between the houses that are there being what they are, which is a very, pleasant area. And if you look at the rest of the lots, I mean, they're anywhere from like 118 to 246 foot wide. So I think on the context of neighborhood character, I would many of the comments by Mr. Potts resonated pretty well with me. The other thing you think about a bit is where else have we done something like this in our community? And I think about, if you look at the kind of corner of Manitoba and Rice Street, on Manitoba, I call it the west side of the road, there's 4 relatively new homes that have been built there, 65 foot wide lots. It's an R3 area. The houses there are generally, at least original houses, have been smaller than what's been built. So does it fit in the neighborhood? Has it affected the character of the area? Maybe somewhat, but maybe not that bad. The other one you think about is Central Avenue South and LaSalle. Along Central Avenue South, there's 4 relatively new homes in a row. The last one is right on the corner of LaSalle and Central Avenue South. And these are 60-foot wide lots, as are the ones on Manitoba. And I think if you drive through and look at that, I mean, you could conclude, and I believe it has affected the character of the neighborhood. And those are much smaller lots than what we have here on the Glenhaven Road. So I think we need to be really careful about something like that. While it does comply with many of the criteria on the subdivision ordinance, it doesn't make it always appropriate. In most all the cases I mentioned, the houses do fill up the lots and get up to or close to the side yard setback. So here we could have 20 foot between homes. It could be a bit more, but even that is significantly different than the space between homes that are now there and the feel you get. So those are like some of my comments. I think the conclusion of the Planning Commission and acknowledging the adverse effects, mainly because of how different these lots would affect the neighborhood, I'm in agreement with. And just to mention a few, not consistent with the comprehensive plan, respecting the scale and character of the neighborhood, creating 4 narrow lots that are smaller than most of the lots in the neighborhood, significantly change the scale, pattern, and character of the neighborhood, leading to homes that are much closer to each other than what exists now. Creating these lots, creating adverse effects, impacting the scale and pattern and character of the surrounding neighborhood. Pretty much the same ones same issues that were mentioned by Wes, but I think I'm expressing a different opinion about this. Nor do they respond well to the reflective of the neighborhood lots and character. So there's a few more of those, but I think it would, I think if it were something less than 4 lots, it would be much more, I think many of the issues we talked about would probably go away. And that's kind of how I'm thinking about it.
Thank you, Mr. Sorensen. Who would like to weigh in next? Thank you, Ms. McDonald.
Yeah, thank you, Councilmember Sorensen. You sort of summed up some of my issues and feelings about the findings and the criteria that the hard work of the Planning Commission put in. And I just also want to, I know we all know this, but I think it's a nice reminder that the Planning Commission, just like this body up here, is for your neighbors and your community members. They're the ones who live in these neighborhoods, and as are we. And we're just volunteers who care about the character and the skill and we just all care about Wayzata. So that's just a good thing to remind ourselves when we're reviewing their findings based on the criteria. When I watched their meeting about this application, I have to admit, I kept thinking, why R3? Why R3? This doesn't feel like an R3 neighborhood. I live in an R3 neighborhood. My lot is a small, narrow lot, like Councilmember Sorensen was describing, and one of the benefits you get from those R3 zoning is some density, but some walkability. And so I do see a disconnect with the zoning district of this street and this neighborhood compared to reality. So was it a typo? Was it an oversight? I think that would be worth looking into a bit further, as the neighbors have asked. And reason being is, if it has been overlooked and not zoned properly, you already have the kind of some carnage or wreckage of that mistake, perhaps, or that oversight. I don't know, but we don't know what we don't know. And so to add another 4 lots to that feels like it would change the character of this neighborhood for forever. And so as a person who's, been serving the city 6 years now, I kind of trust that gut instinct I have, and that of the Planning Commission and some of the other colleagues, or at least council members, Sorensen, that something isn't adding up. It's not matching up to the criteria. So if there is any will from this body to take a closer look at that, I just wanted to go out there and say that for you guys, that's something I would be more than willing to support, to have a closer look at that zoning. So that's sort of where I'm at right now. If anyone else would
Thank you.
weigh in.
Thank you, Ms. McDonald. Mr. Cook or Mr. Plecker?
I'll go. So I watched the Planning Commission meeting, appreciate all the communities, or the neighbors' comments then. Mr. Poss, appreciate your comment tonight. And I agree about character of neighborhoods and trying to maintain the character of the neighborhoods. There's probably, I guess everybody has probably some different opinions of what that means. And I think there's a lot of factors out of our control here that would change the character of the neighborhood over time. And that's just market forces when houses turn over and they can be scraped and built up bigger and taller and and totally conform with the letter of the law and the guidance or the zoning. With that said, I mean, we have to do what we can to control the character of the neighborhoods. But I struggle with this. And I thought when I was watching the planning commission meeting, I thought it was going to go the other way, to be honest with you. Like all the comments leading up to that, thought it was going to get approved. And when you look at it on the facts and no variances conforms with every piece of zoning and guidance, and I have a tough time denying it because of the facts. And I think, there's a way to build unique homes that aren't cookie cutter. And I would, as Mr. Pa said, I would like to, if it moved forward at 4 lots, I would hope that we can come to agreement on the grading issue. Because a concern I have is you've got, like Mr. Pa said, you could have a 30-foot building next to a 15-foot building, and that scale feels a little bit off. So if there's something you can do, I don't know if it's a full 6 feet, if that's possible, great. That's a lot of fill for a relatively big lot. But these lots, the developer isn't pushing the lower limits of, they're not 9,000 foot lots. These are, they're the majority of them. 5 of the 11 are kind of in this same footprint of, in that kind of, I guess these are within 20% of the lot footprint of, in that 15 to 17,000 square foot range. And that, it's not like they're pushing them pushing the limits of what they can get here. And so with that, I'll just say, I have a tough time denying it.
Thank you, Mr. Cook. Mr. Pluckish.
I guess it's up to me here. Before I came in tonight, I didn't have a firm opinion about which way I was going to go on this. I really was trying to be totally objective about it. And I actually drove over to the neighborhood once again before coming here, a few hours before, to kind of walk the neighborhood and visualize as best I could. I know there are times, at least one time I can recall, where I was on the side of approving something that I later regretted because I couldn't visualize it well enough. And I think I learned a lesson from that. I would support the idea, by way of Councilmember McDonald, about maybe exploring the zoning, but that's not actually before us tonight. That's not something we're considering, and we can't really base a decision based on, well, should it have been or should it not have been? That's not before us. But down the road, I might consider supporting that. On the pros, there are a lot of pros for allowing this to go forward. It meets all of the minimums of R3, the zoning that it does currently carry, including the shoreland overlay and the comp plan. It meets all those things. It's a fact. One of the things that I thought this plan or any plan would go forward would take away one real oddity in that neighborhood, which is that one property that has a driveway going on to Gleason Lake Road versus the rest coming into Glee Haven. That always seemed odd to me when I was door knocking back when I was campaigning. So that's a positive, I think. The minimal tree impact, I know some people think a lot of trees would be taken away, but it doesn't look like that would actually be the case, and they would actually improve the land with many of the trees that would be planted. I would also make the comment that going to 3 homes would make more sense to me than having 4. I did some of the numbers here, depending on what you look at the lot widths, is right now the 4-house plan is an average of somewhere around 77 to 80 feet on average, depending on which number you used. If it went down to 3 lots, then it would jump it up to about 105, which would be a little bit more in keeping with the rest of the properties that are there now. But there are also some cons to deny this thing. The planning commission, first off, I really trust the planning commission a lot. Sometimes I do disagree with them on a vote, but they do a lot of work, and I have to acknowledge that. But when the planning commission sent it to us with a recommendation for denial, it was 1 vote short of being just the other way, to Councilmember Cook's point of view. I didn't see that meeting, but I understand that it did tend to say what they should have approved it versus denied it based on the conversation. The home separations in the plan right now seem a little bit squeezed compared to what's there currently, so that is a con. And subdivision, by definition, is a change in the neighborhood. Regardless of what comes out of it, when you do a subdivision, you've just changed the neighborhood. And there's always a dimension of subjective judgment on these things. It's not always black and white, so there is subjectivity here. But here's the bottom line for me. The views of the neighbors make a difference. Nobody knows a neighborhood better than the people who live there. And the comments that I've read and heard tonight from the neighbors are compelling to me. And so that's where I'm going to go with this.
So just making sure I'm interpreting where you're going, you're affirming the planning commission's recommendation is kind of where you're headed. Okay. I guess I have one question before I offer my comments. If there is consensus, and I actually honestly don't know based on people's comments tonight where it's going to go in the final vote, but I prefer 3 versus 4 if that was a way to possibly find a compromise here. It doesn't sound like the applicant is open to that suggestion at this point. But if it does hold favor for 4, what are our options on a grading plan that could be radically different than what's proposed to try to address? I mean, I walked the neighborhood with several of the neighbors and have been out there since then, at least driving it. What are our options for an alternative grading plan, and how would that get codified if there was support for 4?
Mayor, to address 2 points to that, the application before the council this evening is for the subdivision as proposed with 4 lots. So that's where I want to just touch on that point. The 3-lot subdivision is not before the planning, or before the city council.
Yep.
On the grading plan, as the applicant had noted, they're below where it requires city council approval for a grading plan. And that has been their proposal and what they are bringing forward at this time. I would defer to the city attorney, but since that is their application, I believe that is what should be acted on by city council. If they brought forward an application for that additional grading, they could do so and receive that. City council could review that. Typically, those are on consent, as long as the city engineer has reviewed it and is comfortable with the grading plan. So that could be a future action if they decided to bring that forward, but that's not before the council this evening.
No, I get that, but can't we provide staff guidance to say work with the applicant to adjust the grading plan for final, or are you saying that's not an option?
I think that level of
I guess it's directed at
I will
David.
defer to
Yep.
the city attorney.
Well, Mayor, we'll take any direction from you that you want to give us, and I think we could certainly talk, or staff could talk with the applicant about that. We certainly couldn't force them to do anything they wouldn't want to do. But yeah, I agree with everything Director Sharp said.
Sure. I mean, I posed this hypothetical to Lake West, and I don't want to speak on their behalf, and certainly you can correct me, Mr. Fretham, if I mischaracterize our conversation, that you'd be open to it as long as it doesn't materially change your plan, right? If it meets the neighborhood's wishes, if there's support for 4, and I honestly don't know if there is support for 4. Sure. I mean, either Kelsey or you, Mr. Fretham, just want to make sure I didn't mischaracterize our conversation a month or so ago.
Good evening, Mayor, City Council, and neighbors, city staff. Yes, Mayor and I had a conversation about a month ago, and he had asked me if I would entertain the idea of lowering the grades, and I spoke with our engineer about what that would involve, and it would, right now the grades, as Councilmember McDonald had suggested, the homes are set back quite a ways, and there's a reason for that, as we're trying to maintain driveway slope to keep the driveways at a reasonable approach to the homes. So that's why they're set up, to catch that grade up. So it allows to bring the homes a little more forward. And it would probably make a nicer development. It would cost us some money to haul that material out, but we would be willing to do that. I know it's maybe not appropriate for me to comment, but we brought what we thought was a fully compliant plan forward because we didn't want to get into an arguments or tough position. We have enough of that going on other matters right now. So we just thought, I'm not touching this project unless it is a absolutely, completely conforming application so that the city would be easy for them to make a decision because we're meeting all the criteria. And so it's a bit of a surprise to us that it's where it's at, but I completely respect if you decide that this is not right. I hate to mislead the neighbors in that direction. But we're here and open to discussion if you have anything else.
On the grading, well, thank you for that clarification. So I am generally a pro-property rights person, and I struggle when you are balancing subjective and objective criteria. And it really becomes very challenging sitting up here to only use the subjective criteria. And, David, I guess I'd ask you to sort of replay from your point of view the finding of facts. We had sort of the applicant's point of view. I'd like you to articulate, as you help the Planning Commission to define these findings of facts, give me some color on how you reach those conclusions and how you see them as a substantive way to defend a denial.
Sure. Well, Mayor, I guess maybe the best way to do that is to just pull up the report and recommendation if you want to follow along on, it's page 271 of the packet. And yeah, the subdivision ordinance is different from the zoning ordinance in a lot of ways. And the focus really when the commission looks at a preliminary plat, which is what effectuates a subdivision or a lot combination, the key thing that the ordinance calls out is that you're supposed to consider possible adverse effects. And so by its nature, that's sort of a judgment call. And the ordinance lays out a bunch of criteria that are, it's not an exhaustive list, but it's a list you should definitely, you have to look at those criteria. There can be other things that are possible adverse effects that aren't listed there. So, when staff reviewed the Planning Commission's deliberations and the criteria, that's what made its way into the draft report, which ultimately the commission reviewed and adopted after discussing. And I think there is some redundancy in the code. I mean, it talks about building pads in more than one criterion. It talks about character of the neighborhood in more than one place. So that's why you see this coming up a few times. But all the factors in the ordinance were not cited in the report, but the things that came out in the Planning Commission's discussion were, the first one under 1A, which, by the way, that's misnumbered here. It's actually 6 finding us, I guess, focuses on what the comp plan says about neighborhood character, respecting existing scale, character, and pattern of the city, and recognizing existing neighborhoods. So I think, the applicant's presentation tonight, and I think it's very rational, is taking a bigger view of what this neighborhood is. Looking at what's across the street, what's, towards the direction of the highway, there's a PUD, there's denser housing. I think the public testimony and the Planning Commission probably looked at a more narrow or limited definition of the neighborhood as the cul-de-sac there. And that's what we heard again tonight in some of the public comment. Preservation of natural amenities, that slope and topography, which, I think the commission focused more on, well, we don't want to disturb things too much. We don't want to lose trees. Maybe want, as Mr. Fretham said, that creates maybe a further natural setback. But then there's the one property where maybe there's an adverse effect there on the one neighbor. So there's more to think through on that. The commission, the next criteria did, the lots should be similar to those in the neighborhood. I think there's facts in the record there that go both ways. Again, depending on what you think about the neighborhood, how you measure those. So there's a judgment call for council there. But again, it goes to scale, pattern, and character of the neighborhood. Minimizing grading is another criteria that's called out. There was concern about proposed lot 3 on that point. And then again, going down to what's 3 there, the creation shouldn't adversely impact the scale, pattern, and character of the surrounding neighborhood. And here, it's focuses on density. The density would double going from 2 to 4 properties, two homes to 4. And then that's, the next criteria is, again, this is going off what's in the subdivision ordinances, they should respond well and reflect the surrounding lots and neighborhood character. And there, the commission felt, and I heard it here again tonight, that, a subdivision with fewer lots, even as many as 3, would better reflect the neighborhood character than 4. And then the last criteria is, again, are these lots dissimilar in terms of shape and size to the collection of lots in the neighborhood cul-de-sac there? So that is the basis of the finding of adverse effects that the commission made its recommendation of denial, and that's how the resolution is teed up now.
Yep, thank you for that further clarification. I mean, I struggle with just using subjective criteria, so I lean on supporting 4, but with the caveat that we would require, if there was support for that we would require the developer or the applicant to work with staff to come up with a revised grading plan as a subject of that approval. I'd seek your counsel, David, on how to craft that resolution. I have no idea if it will even fly, but
Mr.
the only,
Mayor?
let me finish.
Yeah.
The only way that I would support 4 would be with a revised grading plan and procedurally how we could enforce that. I heard an openness from the developer and the applicant to go down that road. And again, I'm not saying that there is support for that. So I'm making that assumption. I'm just saying for my support, it would require that revision.
Can I ask you a quick clarification on that?
Sure.
So what I feel I heard the applicant say that is if you regrade, you lose those generous setbacks. Well, one of my other major concerns about this subdivision is that steep curve as you walk.
Right.
Or walk by. So before any sort of, I guess I would just want to know if that regrade would make that setback, if they would. I think 4 is wrong for this,
Right.
just to be clear, but 4 at 10-foot setback would be, I'd really feel for the Glee Haven.
Yeah, when I walk the site, there's a distinct sort of top of the hill effect, and that's, I think, where you'd focus on the grading change. I'm not suggesting that you'd go to a uniform grading to then impact that setback. There is a distinct, I don't know what the right terminology is, but a mound or a high point that's sort of towards the end of the cul-de-sac, not the 15, and that's where that mound is most significant. And I think that's what I'm directing the attention to, is the most high point in the 4-lot configuration. Because then that would help with views, it would help with sort of making it feel more natural in terms of, because otherwise you're gonna have if 4 were approved, you're gonna have this really high point of one home, and then it kind of goes down the other way. And that's what I heard, at least from some of the neighbors I met with, as a concern. So that's what I'm specifically referring to.
Understood.
So hopefully that clarifies my comment. So, well, this is gonna be tricky. I mean, I guess what I'll try is to see if a motion would prevail, considering the adoption of the resolution denying, and see if that holds in a roll call vote. If it doesn't, then I'd come back and see if there's support for an alternate plan that I might propose, which would be for 4, but with mutual acceptance of a revised grading plan. So let's see if the first motion holds. If someone wants to move and second it, see how that goes. We'll do a roll call vote. If it holds, so be it. If it doesn't, then I'm going to propose an alternative. Does that feel okay to everybody? All right, so I would accept a motion on considering adoption of Resolution 14-2026 denying the subdivision by preliminary plat at 190 Gleason Lake Road and 121 Glee Haven Road. Would accept that motion.
Mr. Mayor, I'll make that motion.
Great. Do I have a second to that motion?
Second.
Okay, any further discussion? So again, if you're voting in the affirmative, you're saying that you're affirming the Planning Commission recommendation to deny this. So just take a roll call vote on that, please.
Councilmember Sorensen?
Aye.
Councilmember Pleckish?
Aye.
Councilmember McDonald?
Aye.
Councilmember Cook?
Nay.
Mayor Mullen?
Nay, so that did prevail. So that would hold then. and we'll see where it goes from here. Thank you very much for all being here, and thank you for your time. Thank you to the applicant as well. Okay, we'll just pause for a second. I know we've been here since 6 o'clock. Do you want to take 2 seconds as they clear the room, or are we okay to proceed?
Let's proceed.
Okay, great. We'll just pause for just a second to let the room clear so we're not distracted in our final stuff, and thank you. No, I know. You mentioned, hey, bring it up, so I tried to honor that. Okay, the last item now is our city manager's report. Ms. Yeager.
Thank you, Mayor and Council. Just a couple of items for tonight. The first is to highlight that Highway 12 construction did start this week, so folks will start to notice as they're traveling on Highway 12 that there will be lane shifts, switching throughout the day. We're going to try our best on our social media and city website to amplify MnDOT's messages, but I highly recommend residents sign up on MnDOT's website to get email notifications about construction updates. That'll be the fastest way for you to get information about any changes in their construction timelines or construction impacts. A couple other things. Spring cleanup will be on May 2nd. I've heard from several residents, I forget every year. The date this year is May 2nd at 7 a.m. for curbside pickup of a bunch of items. You can go onto our city website to find a list of acceptable items, or if you need to arrange for special pickup, but it's May 2nd. Following that, we are planning ahead for our Clapbridge Park grand opening celebration. That will be on Thursday, May 14th from 5 to 7:30 p.m. That's a Thursday. There's going to be inflatables, yard games, a ninja obstacle course, a bunch of fun stuff. So mark that on your calendars, and we hope to see you on the 14th. And that's all I have for you tonight.
Okay, I just want to bring up one other, request that was put in front of me related to Highway 12 disruption. We lived through Bushway, I actually think this could be more substantive in impact to our local business and disruption than Bushway. And the request came from several in the restaurant community that obviously these 90 days are their prime earnings season. And also reached out to Senator Ann Johnson. And what the request of our business community is to try to get more specificity from the DOT about the on-off exits that are going to be impacted and when, because that's going to have a profound impact. Everything's going to be impacted, but when you get to the first 2 exits and then closing access to Shoreline Drive, that's where it gets nuclear. And I'm wondering if we'd be open to hosting an open house, if we can get some help from Senator Johnson to try to drive some more clarity to the schedule of by entry and exit ramp. So at least we have a better understanding of the most profound impact to get access to the city. The second request I heard from our business community, is there a way we can get information out there about alternative paths to get into town, right? So one path is going to be continuing west to do a loop back into town off of Highway 112, when and if that is the last part of the project that gets done. And then the second is to probably in the later part of the project is use 494 and Minnetonka Avenue and coming in through Bushway as an alternative road. So could we scenario plan those and try to communicate both to residents and externally about who people want to come to visit? If we had some understanding of that order, we could say, hey, early in the construction project, please use 112 and return back to the city because 494 is impacted. Later in the project, if 494 is done first, then we could say later in the project, use 494 and come in back through McGinty and Bushway. So I know you don't have the answer to that, but I guess there's a strong preference in the community to try to push on the county to scenario plan that so we can help communicate alternative routes to get in and out of town.
Yeah, thanks for your comments, Mayor. I'll follow up with our public works staff and MnDOT to see if we can get some.
Yeah, and Senator Johnson offered to offer assistance there, and she sits on the Transportation Committee.
Yeah.
The next thing that I have is the League of Women Voters is hosting a forum next Wednesday, April 29th, with the cities of Plymouth, Long Lake, Orono, Corcoran, Mound, Minnetrista, Medina, and Wayzata. So I'll be representing Wayzata at that forum at Plymouth City Hall at 6:30 on Wednesday, April 29th. So if you're looking for a broader set of our neighbors and us, please attend that event with the League of Women Voters on the 29th. That's all I've got. Any other comments?
Move to adjourn.
Great, I'll take that. Second?
Second.
All in favor, say aye. Aye. We're adjourned. Thank you.
Who was working on the MnDOT stuff, the outreach.
Yeah.